Hello, everyone, and welcome to SmashBoxxTV's podcast 209. Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy, along with Johnny V, here in our
luxurious,
glorious,
spectacular,
glamorous,
not exactly clean
studio in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Glad you guys are joining us tonight. See the board lighting up, and we're excited to bring you the show. We're going to have at least one world champion, maybe more. But at least one world champion joining us tonight. And, well, it's not Dynamite because, well, I don't think he has that title. But
he has no world championships as far as I know.
Not in disc golf, at least. Maybe some other one.
That's
Either
true.
way, we always get our updates almost every week. We get updates from Dynamite Vicich. He'll talk about pretty much everything that went on sans the 2018 PDGA Pro Masters World Championships. I was blessed to be there and be part of it and have a little bit of the action on the coverage side. I want to immediately thank Dynamic Disc, first of all. They presented the event and supported Scott Reek and the entire event, along with the PDGA, of course, as it is a PDGA-owned major. But then additionally, Dynamic Disc reached out and supported me and my video blog efforts. And specifically, Danny Lindahl was out there hustling around. It was kind of weird to have like another me out there running around doing stuff, but he's about half the size.
I was going to say he's half of you in a lot of ways, but not distance.
No, not at all. So Danny was running around. He got a bunch of great shots and interviews and put together some pieces. I was able to put together some pieces, and we still have more footage to release. Danny had some stuff. I've got one that's actually all ready to go. I think we're going to have a finals tomorrow. Danny has a piece that he already prepared for me. So when it was all said and done, there's going to be something like 8 or 9 or 10 videos released from this year's Pro Masters World. So again, that coverage was made possible by the PDGA along with Dynamic Disc. So thank you guys so much for the support. Scott Reek, that entire crew, just a tremendous effort. We'll get to all of that a little bit later. Like I was saying, I'll be able to cover a little bit more on the Pro Masters side of things. In the meantime, I think we can catch up with Dynamite Vicich. He'll give us some action from the rest of the world. And then after we have Dana, we're going to get right to our FP40 world champion in Kimberly Giannola. I think she goes by Kim as well, but I'll double check with her. Either way, she's going to be joining us. And it would be super exciting to talk to a world champion who claimed it in the AM division last year in FA40, and then turns around a year later and claims a Pro Worlds title. Wow. That's pretty incredible.
Skyrocketing.
So, yes.
And shout out to DJ Kento. Thank you for the super chat. We appreciate it. Shout out to Tom and Courtney Elder and Author Eyes.
Wow, they got, that's bang for your buck.
I'm just saying.
Getting a shout out for your company, all for that $2 fee. I love it. Thank you, guys.
What we do.
We should catch up. I know I'm probably the one that needs to talk to you guys. All right, let's get him. Dynamite Vicich. Perfectly timed. Hey, buddy, how we doing tonight?
I think he maybe expected an intro, and I didn't give him one.
Johnny?
There was no Dynamite intro. Sorry, we went right to the action.
It reminds me of this weekend when I was filming a shot. I think it was Schwebby or somebody was throwing. I was choking back a cough, something or other, and I was just like, please throw, and I had to cough. And as soon as they released, I was hacking away. Something didn't go down right. So I know how you feel, Dana. How we doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Aside from I got a little cold, that daycare stuff. Kids got runny noses. Now I got a runny nose and stuffy headache, all that. But otherwise, I'm good. We got tons of disc golf action. Last weekend, coming weekend, the weekend after. This is a great time for disc golf right now.
And a ratings update. There was a ratings update that was put out there as well.
Was that today, right?
I think it actually came out early. A lot of people got it yesterday.
Oh, my gosh. Let me not go out and look.
Mine hasn't changed. Still just sub 900. I keep waiting for some early 2017 ones to fall off, and I don't have enough rounds to knock those off because I believe, what Dana, maybe you know more about this. Is it just they keep the previous 10 regardless of time?
8, I think, is the number.
Is it 8? Okay, because I know I've got some coming up in September. I've got some that are earlier than that, and I keep looking at them and go, fall off already, you 823 rated round. It's not doing it, though. All right.
It's a tough one.
I know, Dana. These are problems you don't have to worry about. You don't throw 823 rated rounds.
Oh, unless it's like the finals of the Disc Golf Pro Tour.
It's not like anyone was watching or there was any money on the line.
Nobody
Who cares?
You were guaranteed money, so really, what does it matter?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's talk about some awesome disc golf action.
Yeah, so let's start over in Croatia, the European Disc Golf Championships. 200 total players. This was an A tier. In the open division, we had some studs. 87 total players, and right out the gates, Seppo Paju shot some fire. A 1062 rated round, a 51, and close behind him was Silver Lot and Simon Lizotte right there as well. Pasi Koivu. So that set the stage for round 2 of this 4-round event, and unfortunately for Seppo, round 2 didn't go as good as round 1, but still not too bad. Simon leapfrogged him, shooting a 50, which I believe was course record, 1063 rated. And from there, Simon really didn't look back. He, over round 3, tied for the hot round with Vaino Michela, who's he's having a really impressive season, and he had a pretty good season last year. But a young player from Finland, Prodigy sponsored, definitely has the makings of a superstar from what I can see from over here. But they both shot 51s that round 3, and but it wasn't enough to catch up to Simon. Vaino had a rough first round, shooting a 58, which was only 1005 rated. So the final round, Simon kind of cruised in. He got the 5-throw victory over Seppo. Vaino finished in 3rd, and then there's a big tie for 4th. KJ, who was way down the leaderboards after the first couple rounds, tied for the hot round, final round, shooting a 51, and that shot him all the way up into this tie for 4th with Silver Lot, Leo Peronen, who recently won Finnish championships, and then Pasi Koivu, who's had a really good performance this past weekend. Pasi's he's been an elite Finnish player for many years, and he's come over to the States and done well at USDGC, but he's kind of been on a little bit of a downswing, but it looks like it's coming back around as he went 1046, 1021, 1013, 1009. So pretty strong weekend for him. So congrats to Simon. This is his 2nd title. I think he last won it 6 years ago. On the women's side, 24 women played, and again, for I don't know how many events in a row, but Henna Blumros and Evelina Salonen battled it out again. Really, the main difference between these two was 2nd round. Henna shot a 54, which was 1024 rated. Chuck Kennedy.
Oh, he's already out on the board. He's already out on the board. You didn't have to do it.
Right. He can now sense when you're about to call him.
Wow, he's evolving. Maybe he could tell us how good that 50, if it holds up, if that 1024 is going to put Henna in that all-time list. I guess my guess is that it'll put her somewhere in that top 10. But yeah, that was a par 62 round, and she shot a 54, and she beat Evelina by 6 throws that round, and then beat her by a throw during the 3rd round. And then Evelina got 1 stroke back on her in the finals, but it wasn't enough. Evelina lost to Henna by 3 throws, finishing in 3rd, 10 throws behind Evelina was Kristen Tatar. And then Katka Badova and Evra Kratola finished in a tie for 4th. So congratulations to those newly crowned European champions.
And I think from all the FPO side, I think Katka might be the only one coming over for Worlds. I have to double check that, but I thought I had heard her say that. So, or I thought I'd heard someone else say that. But I'll double check that.
It doesn't look like Henna is signed up, and Evelina, she is not signed up either. So
yes, Katka will be at the MVP and PDGA Worlds.
Okay, kind of a bummer we won't see have Henna and Evelina, as they're both Henna's 944, Evelina 948. They're both playing some really good disc golf. Terry, can you name the only FPO world champion from Europe?
2004 Brigitte Lagerin? No, is that correct? Did I pronounce that correctly?
Brigitte.
Yeah. Brigitte 2004 in Iowa. What's that?
I said, don't ask me on pronunciations.
Yes. That would be our... and I believe, just lingering out there, I'm going to just throw it out there for a timestamp of sorts. It's been about 1 year since I made a bet with Chris Finn of Dude that he said we would have an international world champion.
He said
within 3 years. Mm-hmm. And so he's got 2 years remaining on that wager.
MPO and FPO?
Yeah, I think we agreed MPO or FPO. And
I think the better bet is FPO right now. With some
well,
of the way
first they need to come over and play.
Agreed with the way some of those women are playing.
Of course, but I mean, they need to get here first.
Simon, of course, at any given point could step up. KJ could put together, but looking at the strength that the FPO field over there has right now, I would love to see an attempt like that made. So
okay, and thank you. Yes, Lagerholm. I think I was mixing up with a somewhat Midwestern gentleman on the last name. So yes, Brigitte Lagerholm, your 2004 Women's World Champion.
Yeah. Or no, we'll find out how that bet holds up here in a few weeks. I can't wait to talk about it. Got a big weekend coming up, man. Maple Hill. Maybe get a little of that momentum. Someone can get some momentum going. We shall see. But for the women's side, man, seems like things are a little wide open with Paige kind of cooling off from her for a really hot start of the season. But hey, maybe it's time to, the ebbs and flows. She's gonna peak back up here when it matters most. But we'll talk about Worlds here more in the next couple weeks. But another A tier this weekend. Actually, another few A tiers. This particular one, the Cedar Creek Open, which is an event I've heard nothing but great things about. It's in Fairmont, Minnesota. Trevor Bone is the tournament director. 206 total players. And Terry, your boy Kale, he showed up, and he showed up in a big way. 3 rounds. He went 1056, 1061, 1066, did not card a bogey. And I believe they were playing some pretty tight wooded courses, and maybe even one or two of them were new. So fresher, new wooded courses. Kale just absolutely destroyed the competition. Then there was a short finals, but Kale ended up at 41 under par. And in second place, a name that haven't seen too much of this year, Colin Bailey. From one of those great players from Austin, Minnesota. Colin, he's had a bit of a, I guess not. It looks like he's played 14 events, but I felt like we saw him out and about a lot more in previous years. But it looks like he's staying mostly in Minnesota, still having some good finishes. But what do I know? 14 events. Wow, I thought he was taking a little. Had a little slow season, but anyways,
how many of those events, though, Dana? Real quick, let me interrupt quickly. Yeah. How many of those events, though, were the Pro Tour or outside of Minnesota, which is where I think you're more likely to see or recognize or run into them?
I believe it looks like just The Rumble was the big one, and then this,
that's a stone's throw away from Minnesota at the same time.
But,
so I think your assessment's not too far off. I think we've just seen him a little bit outside the region in years past, a little more, but a solid performance.
Dana, do you know
really
the most famous? Do you know the most famous thing from Austin, Minnesota?
Spam.
Yes, home of Spam.
Come on, man.
And home of the Spamtown Open. Yeah.
I'm a former Spamtown Open
Yes,
champion.
you are. I was just going to say that. I think I beat Dave Felberg at Spamtown.
That was the AM division in '99.
I'm not going to bring up old stuff. I don't. Maybe I didn't beat him, but I feel like I did.
Dave will remember, so you can ask him. No doubt about that. But rounding out the top four, Mitchell Privet, he came out hot at the event, was hanging with Cale after the first round, but then Cale left him in his dust, like pretty much like everybody else. And Noah Mensma, who's had a really good year. Noah finished in fourth. I got to play with Noah at Ledgestone one round. Good kid, heck of a player. He's playing without a disc sponsor this year. He's got a bunch of different discs in his bag. He's 1007 rated. We saw him kind of break out west earlier this season at the Steady Ed on the lead card. Held his own, and then kind of them last few holes kind of had just couldn't hang on to fend off I think Macbeth, but nonetheless Noah's had a great year, and then another solid event here. He came on strong there over the last two rounds, going 10-15, 10-43. So congratulations to Cale. He is going to be at Vibram. Him and Paul Oman stopped here yesterday. Paul left his car and they hopped in Cale's and headed out east for some of that Maple Hill action. Bummed out that I was not able to hop in the truck with them, but I'm happy to be home in the same breath. So Cale, shooting some really good disc golf coming into Maple Hill. Definitely definitely keep an eye out for him. He has won the event in the past.
Twice.
Is he a two-time winner? He won Marshall Street, and then he won.
Well, I mean, throwing that all out there as events over there at Maple Hill, large-scale events, Marshall Street, Vibram, whatever iteration it was called. I believe he is the only two-time winner out there. I feel like that might be sounds the case. Like something I've
on the
at
MPO
one point.
side.
Yeah, on the MPO side, I believe so.
Paige Pierce has dominated the FPO side for a few years. So, but we do have a chime in from Chuck. That should be a segment. Chime in from Chuck. Paige Pierce leads that SSA category with a 1058 at Texas State's last April. Thank you for your chime in with Chuck.
And while we're correcting everything, I was incorrect. The Spamtown from 1999, Dave Felberg actually was tied with me. After the end of round number 1, we were in the lead, and he edged me by 3 strokes in round number 2. Dave Felberg, your Spamtown Advanced Champion in 1999, edging out your very own Terry Miller by 3 measly strokes. Johnny V, on the other hand, taking it down in intermediate. All right. Edging out our other good friend by a single stick. So there's your walk down memory lane. I got you by 10 that. Oh, I should have played intermediate. All right, moving on. Come on.
Only 10. That's enough.
This is silly.
On the women's side, there's only 3 players: Holly Finley, Lauren Butler, and Elizabeth Emerson. They did finish in that order, with Holly winning, but it was a close match. Holly beat Lauren Butler by 2 throws and get herself a little $500 payday. Not too shabby. So, congratulations to both Holly and Cale. Boy, there was a number of other A tiers this last weekend. Let's jump up to Michigan. This MVP presents the CCR Open. The European boys. No, they're not European, but they were over there long enough earlier this season. Greg Barsby and Philo Brathwaite went 1-2 with Willie Prince. Again, having a really solid final round, jumping him up there to put him in a 3rd place tie with Andrew Marmaway. Dang, I got to get that last name, with Andrew Marweedy, who's right now one of the top Michigan players. So congratulations to Barsby. $1,500. Philo got $1,065 for second place. Not too shabby. That'll help keep him on the road. And Liz Carr back on the scene. She finished in first place out of 4 women. Won by a number of throws, 20 to be exact. But
Wow.
congratulations to Liz. And getting second place was Lindsay Messner. Did Liz just have is she?
I think she's a few months post pregnancy.
Okay.
I don't know if it's 3 or 5 or 6 or somewhere in that neighborhood, but yeah, it's been a little bit since she last had. So obviously, taking a little time off to have a child and then coming back out and playing some good golf, and I don't care how big or large or small your division is. Anytime you have a 20-stroke margin of victory, it says you're doing something right.
Yeah, most definitely.
So
A
congrats
win
to Liz.
is a win. Yep. So let's head out east. We saw a bunch of touring pros head up to Maine, the Vacationland, to play in the Vacationland Open presented by G-Force Putting League. This was in Turner, Maine. 81 total players. This was the pro weekend, and 56 on the MPO side. And we had some real heavy hitters there. Grady Shue, Austin Hannum, AJ, Kevin Jones, Double G, Rick, Lewis Bitney, Maine's Tyler Grady. But this weekend belonged to finally Kevin Jones. Kevin came out. He went 10:59, 10:68 over the first 2 rounds to kind of distance himself from the field by a few throws, but he did have Double G and Ricky right behind him. And Kevin was able to hold them off during the finals. I think it looks like they probably played like a 9-hole, some sort of final 9, the top 11 players. But Kevin Jones, I think probably 4 of the last 5 events was winning going into the final round, and was just not able to get the W. And this weekend up in Maine, he did. He got paid $1,140, so not too bad. Some really good disc golf. That'd be great if there was some video. Double G opened up the event with a 1081 rated round. So Kevin went 43, 1059, and didn't even have the lead. Garrett was a couple throws ahead of him.
I feel like Double G is like on the verge of winning a big one. If he just, it seems like he has that one round where he can't keep up with the rest of the field, and he's shooting like around 1,000 when he needs to be at like 1015 to 1020, and that's all that's holding him back is like one solid round.
Yep, he needs to make those bad rounds. He needs to drop a few strokes from those bad rounds, and we're going to see his name in the winner's circle. But flashing back to the beginning of the season, Double G was a name that we talked about here on the show, about watching and seeing, what he's going to do on the road. And I don't think we had any doubts that this is the Double G that we would see. He's up to 1025 rated. Let's see if he's gone up from down to 1022, but nonetheless, he's at that elite level. And we saw him pop off a pretty hot round 1 at Ledgestone. So be cool to see him do it again here at the MVP, and keep that second round above 1020, and he might be able to get himself a win. But Raincoat Rick finished in 3rd place, 1 throw behind Double G. Lewis Bitney had a pretty darn good weekend, and he finished in 4th place. Maine's Tyler Grady finished in 5th, and also from Maine, Josh De Batista. He finished in 6th, right ahead of AJ Frisbee. who had a couple good rounds, and then round 3, he had a little 956. But AJ, I did want to touch base on AJ a little bit, since I missed the post Ledgestone stuff. I can't say enough about how he bounced back from that bridge hole, and from that really tough putting start. As someone who's been on big cards over my career and in big moments and stuff, sometimes I've caught those bad rounds, and it looked like AJ's round was going to be one of those really, really bad ones, that final round Ledgestone. But he bounced back and held it together and played some really good disc golf, and that is not easy to do. I'm definitely impressed with AJ's game this year. I haven't looked if he's above. He was 10-15 going into this update. Let's see if he's up to 10-17. So his rating is just cruising up. He's throwing confidently. I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple more top 10s out of him over the next couple weeks here at the MVP, and then even at the Worlds. Definitely would not be surprised, because he's hot right now. He's playing confident, and man, just the way he held himself together that final Ledgestone round was pretty. As someone who's been there, I noticed that was pretty special.
I've got AJ 12th at Worlds. That's my guess.
Ooh. Okay.
I just think he's just a very dynamic player.
So dynamic.
Oh, jeez. Anyway, Dana, we got like two or 3 minutes left with you, so let's make him wonderful. Give me the best 2 minutes you've ever have.
Step inside the SmashBox.
So Vacationland Open, don't want to forget about the FPO side. We had some big names there as well. Katrina was able to hold off Jay Weezy from getting 2 wins in a row. She beat her by 2. Lisa Fakis finished in 3rd place at 4 under par, and then Pickle Nicole finished in 4th place, tied with Allison Haggett. Boy, I couldn't even last 2 minutes, Johnny.
All right, so Dana, your last parting shot then is give us 60 seconds or less on your Pro Masters Worlds, from afar. Kansas City, go.
John Graff from Montana, friend that I've met over the years. He had himself a great weekend. It was awesome to see him win. Really, how Patrick Brown, I swear he looks younger and younger, but all of a sudden he's playing in the Pro Master 50+ division.
I would check his ID. He might have a fake ID. Sometimes when you're younger, you get a fake ID to get into a bar. You might be 19. Uh-huh. I think he has a fake ID to get into the MP50.
Yeah. Oh, seriously. But yeah, that's seeing his name at the top of that division. A surprise, but then not a surprise seeing it up at the top. And then Pro Masters women, our guest coming up here, Kimberly, I believe.
Yep.
Seeing her hold off Courtney McCoy all weekend and then beat her in a playoff, just pretty cool stuff. And then to win, won Am Worlds, and then now to win a Pro World title, pretty cool stuff. And then, yeah, that Masters. That 40+ Masters, that was a lot of fun watching those scores come in, and Dave Feldberg having himself a really big weekend, getting that doubles title, and then being able to hold off all those 40+ studs like Johnny McRae, Barry, Mike Mosier, Schweb, Shasta. I wouldn't have been surprised to see Shasta win this last weekend. He's been having himself a really nice summer, but those top 4 guys. Really top 5 played some pretty darn good disc golf. So
it was. All right, Dana, well, we actually have Kim in the virtual/digital green room, so we're gonna let you go. She has at least 2 world titles. You have 0. So that's not the only qualifier, but
it's the main one.
Time for you
tonight.
to go. We appreciate the insights, buddy. Looking forward to checking in with you throughout the week. And, as a previous Spirit Award winner that you are, your spirit will be greatly missed at the Vibram / MVP / Maple Hill / whatever he calls it this year. So we'll miss you out there, buddy.
It'll always be Vibram. Peace.
Come on now. R.I.P. Vibram. All right. Have a good night, Dana. So Dana comes in with a cough and leaves with a sneeze. And I think we've got some world champ action coming up. We're going to have Kimberly Giannola joining us in just a second. And what a perfect segue, referencing the MVP Open coming up this weekend. MVP adding a world title to their lineup in Kimberly. And let's welcome her to the show. Kimberly, how are we doing tonight?
Hi, I was kind of cruel to Dana.
Well, we can do that. We're all kind of friends with him.
First, congratulations on your win.
Thank you.
Awesome. And backing it up with your amateur win last year, what a stellar start to a career.
Oh, thank you. It's been unreal. I certainly didn't go into the Pro Masters Worlds expecting to win it, so it was a shock.
Well, let's start there. I've known and met Courtney, I think, literally in like the early 2000s when I had a kind of a random trip down to Georgia to play some disc golf, and that's where I first met her. And I always knew she was a great golfer then, and has obviously carried on to always be a great golfer. And she had you by 50-ish ratings points going into this event, you and the rest of the field. Yes. And so on paper, a lot of people might have just said, all right, well, everyone's, hopefully just going to be, fighting for second. Courtney should have this locked up. You have the hometown advantage, we'll say, home course advantage in a sense that, Kansas City area. But what is it like, having that level of competition as you're walking into this event?
Well, as Nova pointed out during the commentary for the Final 9, I actually played against Courtney at U.S. Masters this year, and she beat me by almost 30 strokes. So,
wow.
When she was fighting really Leslie Todd, and the rest of the field were just fighting for third and fourth at that point in time. So, knowing how well Courtney threw at Crown Point, I was coming into the World Championship thinking, as long as I play well, I've got second place. Or I shouldn't say I've got it, but I have a very good shot at it. When I came out of round one with the lead on Tuesday, I chalked it up to the rain because it did affect everyone's play. And it wasn't until Wednesday when I got an additional 2 strokes that I thought, wait, this might actually happen.
Yeah, I mean, how much do you think the home course advantage helped you out? Was it just you knowing the courses? Was it your you being comfortable being able to sleep in probably your own bed, did you maybe stay at a hotel or anything, or did you stay at home?
No, I stayed at home, but I didn't sleep.
Yeah, that seems to be a common theme.
I could understand that on the last day or so, not getting a lot of sleep.
After my round Wednesday, I had trouble sleeping the rest of the week. It had gotten into my head. I was shocked that I was in the position that I was. Hometown advantage, I don't know how much that really factored into this. I'm fairly certain at some point in her career, Courtney has played Rosedale. I'm certain she's probably played Waterworks. Heritage might be the new one, but she did come in a few days early and she did practice Heritage, and Heritage is the course I play the least. So did I have a hometown advantage? Maybe, but against someone of her caliber, I don't know how much that actually factored into it.
It's a great answer. I mean,
yeah, exactly. And now, how long have you been? Give us a little bit of your backstory. I mean, I've known Courtney myself for 15 plus years, but how long have you been playing disc golf? And I'll follow that immediately and say, how do you go from winning Am Worlds one year to winning Pro Worlds the next? But tell us a little bit about your golf backstory.
Okay, I started playing mid-year about 2015 when Nova decided to start playing. We were both playing competitive tennis at the time, and tennis was really my love. I didn't want to give it up for disc golf, but she kept playing it, and I wanted to do things with her. So one thing led to another. I'm getting discs at Play It Again Sports. I'm doing rounds at Missouri Western or at Swope. And I've told this particular story a number of times. I almost walked away from the sport at the beginning of 2016. We went and played the inaugural round at the Eagle course at Olpey Lake. And it was a much different course at its opening than it is now in terms of its landscaping and some of its hazards. And when we played it, it was probably 50-mile-an-hour winds and 38 degrees outside. And I was a novice, really, and I emptied my bag trying to hit the island on hole 1. And it's just like, I'm done with this sport! Why am I doing this? But my friends Elizabeth and MK and Nova convinced me to stick it out until the Glassblown Open that year because I had signed up for that, and I did, and I enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed the Kansas City Diva Spring FIVA later that year as well. And so I'm like, all right, I'll keep playing this and start dedicating myself to it because I had a lot of fun. As far as going from a amateur title to a pro title, I don't really know what to say there. I went to Sam Worlds not really with an expectation of winning, but knowing it was within my grasp, looking at how I rated up against the other women I was playing that year. Once I won it, it was a big confidence boost. I started playing better. I ended up winning US WDGC and US Masters in my division last year as well. And so this year I took the leap after the Glassblown Open and started playing pro. And this was right in my hometown, so I couldn't pass it up.
So what have you done to elevate your skill set so much? As someone just pointed out on the board, starting roughly 3 years ago, and now, multiple world titles, and you've had a lot of success out on the course. What would you say are some of those keys to success? Is it, how much you practice? Is it your mental game?
Athletic background?
Yeah, all of those things. What are some of the things that you feel like leads to your success?
Well, the athletic background is definitely part of it. When I went and played Am Worlds last year, the woman who won Amateur Women 50 was a former volleyball player. Her name's Lorena Dostal. She's a great player. And so a lot of women who have prior athletic backgrounds and come into disc golf later, I'm not saying we've got an advantage, but there is definitely a refined skill set there that's going to give you a better start off the gate, we might say. In terms of practice, I live literally across the street from a golf course, and I mean, I can walk there in 2 minutes. So I play a lot of disc golf. And some of that is, let's say 5 or 6 times a week I'm playing, if not more. So I've had a lot of repetition at it. Mental toughness, that didn't really come in until last year. I was a really weak player until, I don't know, late 2016, early 2017. I have a habit of, or I had a habit of getting the lead and then losing it and not being able to hold on to it. Now, a little bit stronger. I wouldn't say I had that in the beginning. It's one of the things a lot of professionals say is they always recommend staying in the amateur divisions until you know how to win, so that you compete there long enough to know how to hold a lead and how to finish out a tournament. And I'm glad I did that because that's definitely been a big boost for me this year. I've lost a couple leads. I was winning the Diva Spring FIVA this year, and Paige Bierkus came back and beat me, and Kaylee Kincaid came back and beat me, and Sarah Gilpin came back and beat me. And so I'm not infallible. There's definitely women out there who can take me down. And let's be fair. At Ledgestone this year, out of 26 women, I was in 25th place after round one. So fought my way back up to 16th, but I still falter like everyone else.
Now, you said your background is in tennis, one of your first loves. Some of the jargon that we hear in disc golf and tennis, backhand, forehand, very similar. Yes. Do you have both shots for that? I mean, you need them in tennis. Do you have them in disc golf?
Yeah, my backhand is definitely the stronger shot for distance, but the forehand is actually a really recent development. A lot of people said, hey, you play tennis, you ought to have a good forehand. Well, I didn't get a good forehand until the end of last year. I started paying very close attention to the pro game, and I realized if I want to compete against the pro women, especially at the younger division, or the open division as opposed to, age protected, I'm going to have a forehand. And that's something I've been working on since probably September or October of 2017. So I have one now. It's not my stronger wing, but I can throw from both sides now.
Well, and speaking of studying the game, we've seen Ladies of the Chains podcast, which has been great, and that got started a little earlier this year. And that's been a Kansas City area product. You, Nova, Becca. What has that been like for you guys as, you said, being a student of the game and watching and trying to compete along with some of these younger players across all women divisions? What has that process been like for you, we'll say behind the scenes? There's so much more that's going on that doesn't involve throwing a disc, and it seems like you guys have all taken to that quite well. Walk us through, the podcast, what that means to you, watching video, all of that kind of stuff.
Oh, okay. The podcast was really Becca's brainchild. She approached us and said, hey, do you want to take part in this? And we definitely wanted to be on board with it, as did most of our friends. We're not the only ones that co-host with Becca. You'll hear Liz and Crispian, or Anna and Lupe, or Rhonda Crosby. Kaylee's been on there as well. So all of us in the Kansas City area really want to help with that. And, Becca's been really gracious in giving us the opportunity to do it. In terms of being a student of the game, that was something that came early on, right about the time I just started taking it seriously. So that would have been after the Vacationland Open in 2016. We started watching a lot of film, and Nova was already watching a lot of it, because she definitely took to the sport before I did and fell in love with it before I did. So once you start watching it, you start trying to pay attention to how things are constructed, how in terms of lines and holes, that you're not just ripping every shot as far as you can, that there are targets you have to place on certain landing zones. And that was one of the things for me this year that was actually really kind of rewarding. Going to Ledgestone for the first time after having watched it for so many years, or for so many versions that are online, I'm standing on the tee pad of hole 4 going, oh my God, I'm on the lake shot. I'm actually here going to throw this shot. And it's like, do I lay it up? Do I go for it? And it's like, if you lay it up, you're never going to forgive yourself. So I definitely have Dino Ricciardi to thank me for that during the tournament. I was considering laying it up, and he told me, no, play with Sarah Miedo. But once you're there and you actually are on that course and can see some of the ways that the pros have constructed in the past, it gives me a better idea of what I'm going to throw there too. And I don't know. I don't know how I can really qualify as much the education behind the scenes of watching videos and how that's going to play into commentary or talking on the podcast. But we've watched a lot of things, not only on your channel, but obviously Joe Mez and CCDG and things like that.
Well, and I'll follow that up with, I think about talking with Danielle Charlier, who's, now been very actively involved helping us out on the Pro Tour, and continue to develop more exposure and more media on the women's side, and we continue to push that as forward and as hard as we can. But in talking to her and listening to her, I believe on Ladies of the Chains podcast, she has mentioned in the past when she got introduced to the game and wanted to get serious about it, she wanted to then watch other women play disc golf. And
Yes.
she really struggled with that. She said she found some stuff that I had covered, of women throughout the last few years, but just in general, there wasn't a lot out there. And then I guess I would ask you the same question. Did you guys find that going out and trying to find video of any specific men or women was more useful to you? Or was that just an overall challenge or maybe even a frustration? And I'll further and just say, did you feel maybe a little bit more excited about being involved on the media side because you knew the women's side is somewhat underrepresented?
I would definitely say that, yes. And most of that has come from the amount of feedback and really praise that we've been getting from other women players. So I will go to a new town and I'll start playing and I'll mention Ladies of the Chains and somebody will say, "Oh my God, I love that." And it is something that is kind of unique, and definitely credit Becca for coming up with it, because there hasn't been a venue for something like that. I know, Val Jenkins has done quite a bit to push the game. Sarah Hokum has come up with some great suggestions on how we can move the game forward. But the venue that Becca's created is kind of unique in the sense that she's doing it regularly now, and it's growing and it's getting a good following.
Yeah, definitely.
And the fact that you've given us the opportunity to do commentary and provide that perspective on women's rounds is very helpful as well.
Wow, you guys are way more of an asset to disc golf and to us than I am to you. So I thank you guys for joining us because, or for laying down those commentary tracks, which you guys have done now at least a dozen or so times this year. And it's, again, I know all the women out there really appreciate that perspective, and the fact that I always get these great files that have all the audio that's needed to simply add on to my videos. It's a very mutually beneficial experience, and I really appreciate you guys doing that.
Yeah, and I know I've said in the past that there seems to be a podcast for anyone that wants one in disc golf as far as your style, if you enjoy more of a long form interview with us. But the one thing up until this year I felt that was missing was really a focus on the FPO division, because as much as we will talk about winners and we'll have some women on, we don't get into a lot of the real intricacies of that side of the sport, because we probably don't know them nearly as well as your group does. So I was really excited to see the Ladies of the Chains podcast spring up this year, and I listen to it every couple weeks, and it's phenomenal. It's great.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
So, just recently tonight, and we'll wrap this up from a media perspective, just a few hours ago, I actually released the final 9, which Nova so graciously went out and volunteered. She reached out to me the night before and said, I'd like to film it. And I said, hey, if you're going to film it, please go ahead and use one of my cameras. That's otherwise just going to be sitting here as I'm out doing other stuff and filming. And she was able to capture that final 9. Spoiler alert, not only do you win, but it goes into extra holes, which is even more awesome. And so then you guys graciously added commentary on top of that. What was that like, adding commentary and reliving the World Championship crowning that you just, that just took place, 24 or 48 hours earlier?
Well, let's be honest, because I was trying to be honest on the commentary as much as I could. For the first 6 or so holes, I didn't actually play very well. The moment really got to me, and I made a lot of mistakes, both physical and mental. And so when I knew I was going to be doing commentary for this, I was like, how am I going to approach the fact that I'm going to be commentating on some of the worst golf I've played? I mean, at least recently. And I just made the decision to let's just be honest here. I'm nervous here. This was the moment getting to me. I was desperate here and should have played conservative. Thankfully, it wasn't as painful to watch as I thought it was going to be. I really thought I was going to look at this and everyone else would see just what I was feeling in my heart as opposed to what was actually happening. And then, you see the final putt and it goes in, and that's kind of interesting because when you're in the moment, it just passes like a waking dream, or kind of surreal, that you're not really sure that it actually happened, and you're looking around like, is it over? Is this really happening? And so to actually see what I was doing in my reactions, it was a neat perspective to actually get to look at it from an outside point of view.
Uh, so as Nova is out on the board, I have to ask, was it more nerve-wracking for you or her as all of this was unfolding?
Oh, that's a good question. She would probably say it was more nerve-wracking for her. I'd probably say it was more nerve-wracking for me.
All right.
So,
I'm gonna guess it was for you. That would be
my disc.
So I was going to say what's next, but I'll even preface that question with what do you do? I don't want to say just for an income, but what do you do full time that preoccupies you when you're not playing disc golf? What's your other
passion or employment? Or
like employment, passion, whatever that might be.
There?
Things that pay the bills, obligations.
I'm an instructional designer for Johnson Controls. So I create training material for our internal employees and stuff like that.
Okay. And so then that leads to my next question, which is, what's next? Going on tour full time doesn't sound like that's in the works, or maybe it is. What's next for you?
No, full-time touring just really isn't in the mix at this point. That would be a major shift of my life at this point to, dedicate an entire year or so to golf and try to make a living doing that. So I'm, next year would probably be the same as this year. I'm going to hit the tournaments that come close to me and reserve some of my my time off at work to hit some of the bigger ones. Like I really wanted to play Maple Hill this year. I had to make a choice between Maple Hill, Ledgestone, Professional World, Masters Worlds, things like that, in terms of what time I had available at work to get away from the office. And so next year, maybe MVP Open and not Ledgestone. But, we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, that leads to the next question. MVP, a supporter of yours, a sponsor. How did that relationship come about, and what does it mean for you?
Oh, wow. I started throwing MVP's plastic probably late 2015 and was exclusively throwing it mid 2016. And so I was a pretty big fan for, quite some time, and eventually met Steve Holloway at M Worlds. Was already familiar with some of the other crew there, like Derek Foz. And so after M Worlds, we started talking, and in the end of 2017, got on the team. So in terms of what it's meant, everything. Most players always have that one company they would really, really like to represent. And so when I got the news that I was actually going to be able to do this, it was like, oh my God, this is happening. So in terms of their support, yeah, it's been great. I couldn't be happier.
Are you MVP's first world champion?
I'm not 100% certain. I think I am the first professional world champion. We've had repeat world champions on the junior side. Both Landon Brooks and Lily Ruthin have, I think, 2 X's to their names in the junior division.
Excellent. Yeah, I wasn't sure about the juniors. I'm not exactly sure who MVP sponsors in those divisions. So are we going to see a a Kim stamped MVP disc? Or
show me the money, huh?
I don't know. I don't know about that. There's been no discussions on that front yet. So, I mean, wouldn't say no, but
the door's open.
Well,
so.
you tell them, damn it.
Yeah.
Right there on Smashbox, those guys demanded that now that you've got back-to-back titles at Worlds, it's definitely time for a Signature Series disc. I mean, Matt Dollar doesn't have any World Championship titles to his name, not in the MPO division at least. So, I mean, he might have won a mini tournament here or there or something, I'm guessing. I think he has. I think he's really good with those.
He's very good.
Or an overhand tournament maybe, but come on. I would hold out. That's what I would do.
Yeah. I mean, we got Elaine King now. She's throwing for us, and she's got several titles. I mean,
she has a lot of world championships.
She obtained them before she came to MVP, but we'll see what happens this year. She's playing Pro Worlds, I'm sure, and she's definitely going to USWDGC, so there's opportunity for her.
Certainly, I think the most decorated woman to ever play the game, and that's a huge pickup for MVP. If I recall, maybe you can fill in a few details. I think I heard the story that MVP really said they wanted to get all of their models and plastics and availabilities down, and they were more concerned about that rather than going out and hunting down or acquiring top-level professionals to sponsor. And it was just really kind of their business model, and now maybe they feel like they have a full lineup and can maybe now continue to pursue some of those top-level players like an Elaine King, yourself, so on and so forth. Did I kind of summarize that correctly from what you know?
Honestly, I don't know on that front. That's not any discussion I've ever had with Steve or Derek or Brad or Chad or anyone else in the company. So that may very well be true, but if it is, I can't confirm it.
All right, well, I just make stuff up, so we'll go with that. Maybe we'll ask them this weekend as we head over to Maple Hill. Of course, just a magical and majestic place, and it's awesome that MVP has stepped in to be the sponsor at that event. I'll ask you, I know you just kind of talked about how your schedule maybe will form and time off and proximity. Are there courses? Are there events? Are there destinations that are on your bucket list? And if so, what might a few of those be? And whether you get to them next year or not.
Other
what
than
are a few
MVP,
things,
which we know.
Yeah, are on your bucket list.
Definitely Maple Hill. Would love to play that. I'd love to play the Beaver State Fling, and I'd love to play the Memorial. So if we're talking about, bucket list events, those three are definitely up there. I was able to cross Ledgestone off this year, so that one's done. The Glassblown Open is still probably my favorite event to play, and thankfully it's only about 2 hours away from here, so I'll definitely be there next year.
What is it that most excites you about these tournaments? Is it the size of the field? Is it courses? Is it atmosphere or climate or physical climate? What are some of the things that excite you about any one of those events you just mentioned?
Well, for the Glassblown Open, it's definitely the fact that everything is so centrally located. You go to any restaurant in Emporia and you're going to run into some golfers, and that's always a welcome experience because it feels like a week-long celebration of the sport, as opposed to something like Ledgestone where everything is spread out across like a 40-mile radius, and there's a lot of driving, and you can go the entire week without seeing anyone else there, aside from being at the course or some of the focused events for it. So in terms of these other events that are not the Glassblown Open that I haven't played yet, really it's the allure of getting a chance to play those courses with some of the legends of the sport. I have no illusions of like having huge success in the FPO division against someone like Paige or Sarah or Katrina or Val, but I still want the opportunity to play with them. And so getting the opportunity to go on those courses and perhaps share a card with one or more of them is still bucket list material for me.
Yeah, certainly understandable. And it's, as you were talking earlier about athletic backgrounds, and I think of what Katrina was very actively involved with her sports throughout the years. Obviously, Sarah Holcomb with volleyball. There's certainly some trends there and some similarities as our competitors. And speaking of tennis, Brian Schweberger's out on the board, and some may or may not know that Schweby was I believe a Division I tennis player, superstar, even with his hair. He was out there.
He had the at the time the Andre Agassi
oh, yeah.
style.
We'll give
you
him
know.
that. All right. Kimberly, is there anything else you want to share with the world? Anything that I didn't touch on, or anything else exciting, or thank yous, mentions, all that kind of stuff you want to do?
Wow, I've said so many thank yous over the past couple days. I don't know who I've left out. At the moment, I will say this big thank you to my mother and father, who gave me my love of athletics, because that was something that was important throughout my childhood and my adolescence. And without them, I certainly wouldn't have had the love of the sport that I have now. And I've mentioned this before. I also have to give a big shout out to everyone in the Kansas City Disc Golf Divas. They were instrumental in getting me to start playing when I was kind of on the fence about the sport too. So thank you.
Certainly. All right. So my final question: after you celebrated or were crowned world champion, there was some shenanigans, I'm guessing. I'm just going to guess. I couldn't make it over there, but there was a wedding, 1,000-rated wedding, I think they were claiming even. Give us the down and dirty. What happened at the wedding?
Oh, it was a good time. My friends Elizabeth and MK, I mentioned them earlier as two of the people that kept me in the sport when I wanted to walk away from it. They finally decided to make it official this year, and so a lot of the disc golf community was there. There was much food, much revelry, much storytelling. I will leave the specifics to them to share at some point in time.
No, that's what we call Smashbox exclusives. You got to share the specifics. Who got the rowdiest? Please say Jack Lowe.
I don't know who got the rowdiest. So I'll just give a shout out to Crispian, because I know that she knows how to party. And Anna Hare, you know how to party too. We followed it up the next day with the 1,000-rated wedding tournament at Old Pike Country Club. So there was beer, there was food, there was disc golf. It was a good time.
It's funny. Sometime on Sunday, I was out doing something, and I quickly came across across that event link, and then I lost it. And I hadn't checked back. Dara, I think this should have been featured on Dana's segment. Are the results out there is the real question. Can you give us a breakdown? On the results on the...
they're on the PDGA page.
All right,
yeah,
Johnny V's got
I've got them right here. So the 1,000-rated, Liz and MK's 1,000-rated wedding. In
Tournament.
Open, we have Tim Kremer. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce that, but we're going to go Tim Kremer. Tying a 3-way tie for first place with Chris Sprague and Nick Winkelbauer, all shooting 7 under par. In the Pro Masters 40 plus, we have Rodney Mullen taking that division. Pro Masters 50 plus, Blind Rob Amos. So congratulations, Blind Rob. In advanced, Zach Owen. In advanced women, our wonderful guest.
You keep winning.
That's what she does. The Amateur Masters 40 plus was Michael Stumpfel.
What's that?
I won by 1 stroke. It's not like it was
It's better than losing by 1, isn't it?
And
now this is.
Yep, and the person you beat was Nova. So that's always fun to have
a little rivalry
in the house. So
it was a course we hadn't played before, so it was a challenge for both of us. Old Pike, if you're not familiar with it, can be very punishing.
All right, round it out, Johnny. Give us our last couple champions.
Amateur Master Women 40 plus, Jan Franz, Amateur Masters 50 plus, Patrick Van Hoek, Amateur Masters 60 plus, Ted Keith, Amateur Masters Women's. There's a lot of divisions here. 70 plus, Kirsten Borg, Intermediate, Steve Chanel, Intermediate Women, Elizabeth Borg Bowman, That's
right.
Your bride.
the bride,
All right.
and recreational David Herbert, recreational women Anna Hare, novice hipster Russ Gunn, novice women Ann Quaid, juniors under 10 Aiden Ellis, junior girls under 10 Madeline Quaid, and I'm going to mention just because junior girls under 10, number 2 Alexi Rosas.
Oh
So
my gosh!
that-
I almost
that's a lot-
regret now asking.
That's a
You
lot
won
of
that,
divisions.
Kimberly.
So
you won.
wow, that's a wedding party.
and then
literally.
some. Yes. All right. I'm going to say thank you yet again. I can't say it enough.
And thank you to Nova.
Yes, of course. What you guys are doing, Ladies of the Chains, also commentary on my stuff, anyone else's, videos, just all of that assistance and effort that you guys are putting out. I know the entire disc golf world loves it and appreciates it. And
It's
then,
needed.
And then you turn around and you compete at a high level on the weekends. And you guys are just so incredibly supportive of everything going on, and I can't thank you enough, and see you as just such a deserving champion. So congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. With that being said, we're gonna let you go. I'm sure we'll be talking to you again next year when you win another world title or 10 or something. But seriously, we appreciate it. We look forward to talking more, and between you and Nova, we'll get you guys all set up with cameras. You'll also be filming tournaments pretty soon while you're winning. I don't know. We'll keep throwing more work at you, and we'll keep pushing the sport forward one way or another. So again, congratulations, Kimberly Giannola, your 2018 Pro Masters FPO champion. We'll catch you next time.
FP40.
FP40.
I was wondering. I was like,
Sorry, FP40.
FP40. So,
All right. Good night.
Good night.
FP40.
All right. Correct. Yes, FP40.
You almost got to that whole
I
interview.
almost got it. It's
flawlessly.
so tough to sometimes spit out all those little
Tell me
numbers
about it. There
and
was
words.
there's 1,000 divisions at the wedding.
Well, you're just reading them, though. I think you, honestly, I hate to say it, but I think you forgot someone, and I don't want that email tomorrow that says you didn't mention, was it Michael Strum?
Amateur Master 40 plus Michael Stumfold. Maybe I did miss that
I don't
one.
know. Either way, we got it.
Sorry.
Got them all.
Sorry, Michael.
Got them all.
You'll be our guest next week if it makes you feel any better. We're going to forego whoever wins MVP, and we're going to bring on Michael for my unfortunate...
I just know that next week. Hey, it was really cool you mentioned everybody. You forgot me, though. But all seriousness, thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, Nova. Just a great battle throughout the week, of course. Like we said,
back and forth.
Lots of people would say this. I'll be the first to admit, I don't think I'm being mean in saying it. When you look on paper, and she has a 50-point deficit to someone like Courtney McCoy, who is incredibly skilled and talented, and has won plenty of tournaments. One would say, "Oh, well, that's just it's Courtney's title, and that's why you play. That's why you play the game. You go out and throw. Anything can happen." And Kimberly kept charging, and there ultimately, just so everyone knows too, there were ultimately 4 rounds for them. Then they went right to the final 9. And now some of the larger divisions, and this is all predicated
on field size.
Yeah, on field size, and it's all set out by the PDGA ahead of time. It's not like it was news or a shock. But the idea is that because of the small field size, they didn't have a semifinal round. So they had 4 women in the division throughout the week. Excuse me, and that's why they went from the 4 rounds. They played 2 rounds at each course. They had the 4 rounds. Then they had off, in theory, on Saturday morning. And then Saturday afternoon, they had the final 9 with just the top 2 women out of the 4. And we saw that in another division, a couple of the other divisions, actually, that took place. While we're at it, let's just wrap up, actually, some Pro Masters Worlds. This is a little bit... I'm going to dangle it out there. I don't think it's going to happen, but I did also reach out to Patrick Brown, your MP50 plus winner. And he said he's traveling to the East Coast. He says if he gets in a hotel and gets in a position to try and get at us yet tonight, he said, it might be late. I'm like, you're never too late for us.
Define late.
Exactly. It may happen that he joins us. It may not, but I wanted everyone to know we did reach out to him Patrick's also overdue, I think, for just being on the show, which was great. Some may say, well, where's Dave Feldberg? I don't want to say we talk to Dave plenty, but we talk to him more often than most people, as we're usually getting next gen updates and other things. So that's one of the reasons why I want to reach out to.
Probably in a couple weeks with next gen, and we'll roll all that into it.
Yeah, we'll certainly be connecting on that level. So, but yes, go ahead and read off a few of our winners.
Let's talk a little bit about quickly Pro Masters 40 plus, as you just spoiled it.
I did.
Dave Feldberg winning over the person who I picked to win it, which is Johnny McRae. I had before the event started, that's who my money was on. Taking third place, Barry Schultz at a 42 under par, and then a little gap between third and fourth. We've got Mike Mosier, Brian Schweberger, who apparently, I only saw it on Facebook that he had run into some sort of injury and was having an issue, I think, on his final round. So unfortunately,
pulling his lat. He thought he had pulled his lat.
Oh, is that what it was?
I thought that was a jab at Dave or at Johnny McRae, but sounds like they pulled the lat on him.
Oh, geez. Ouch. So congratulations to everyone who competed, but Dave Feldberg, $3,000. Congratulations. Pro Masters Women 40 plus, as we know, Kimberly Giannola. I always want to, it's G-I-A. So everyone wants to say Giannola.
Which is why I asked her, and I'm so glad I did.
I know.
I
still look at it, and it's hard for me not to spit it out. Kimberly winning, as we know, in a playoff over Courtney McCoy. Pro Masters 50 plus. Patrick Brown going to town.
Yeah.
Taking down Ron Converse. That didn't rhyme, but so congratulations to Patrick. An 8-stroke victory over Ron Converse. Nothing to shake a stick at. Ron Converse is a phenomenal player. PDGA number 9648. He's in that 4-digit club, as a lot of the Pro Masters are these days. Those old guys. Third place, Eric Rainey. Congratulations. Let's scroll down to Pro Masters Women 50 plus. Tavish Cardiff.
Local? Tavish? Yep.
Local.
I don't believe any of those women are 50. I'm just going to say it.
Awfully sweet of you. Winning by a more than a handful over Sheila Kirkham. So Tavish shooting an 18 over par. Congratulations.
And again, to follow that up, another division where based on just sheer numbers, that kind of actually dictates how many holes or rounds of golf they're going to play. They played 4 rounds and then were complete. There wasn't a semis. There wasn't a finals. They had played 4 rounds. Obviously by the margin of victory of
it wasn't going to matter.
30-ish strokes. I'm not certain that another round was going to matter in that case, but just so everyone knows, as you look at it, a couple of the divisions actually did wrap up on Friday and didn't even have a final 9.
In the Pro Masters 60 plus, we have some legends in our sport in a tie with Dr. Rick Vokes, but coming out on top, Kenny Boo Rad Lee, PDG number 14204, putting the smackdown on PDG number 2632, and both of them kicked the crap out of PDG number 962. That's not a rating.
No.
That is a PDG number 962. David Greenwell. Wow. And rounding out the top 4, Randy Beers. So congratulations to the Pro Masters 60 plus there. Pro Masters 70 plus, John Graff bringing it home over Michael Snap Conger. PDGA, I love to say it, PDGA 60. That is not his rating.
Or his age.
He's
older than that.
PDGA 60.
Yes.
Hats off. They played 4 rounds and a finals, and this is Pro Masters 70 plus. These are 70 plus year young men playing all that time in Kansas City in what some might say hot weather.
It was unpleasant. I mean, it was. I'll say this: it
could be worse.
It could have been worse. However, it was pretty much what you would have expected for Kansas City in August. And they had a little rain before I got there. They had rain, I believe, on Tuesday. By the time I had gotten there on Wednesday for the rest of the weekend, everything was pretty much cleared up throughout the weekend. It was hot and sunny and humid and not a lot of breeze. So it was a little bit stale out there for a few days. Also on that list, as you're looking at Snap Conger, finishing in 5th in the Pro Master 70 Plus. We have PDGA number 194. And
Varish.
Yeah, Bob Varish. It's
and legend Tom Schott, PGA 3303.
Yeah, so some
amazing.
great. And now look at that 75 plus.
I was about to say Pro Master 75 plus. I think 75 plus is the number of world championships this guy has. Pete May shooting 35 over par. But there was a 2-person division at 75 plus. Pete May turning down the cash
Yep.
to keep his amateur status. So Carlos Rigby takes home the big prize of $575
and a Zuka cart.
Because Pete May declined the money. So what a wonderful. They're both winners. Congratulations.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Pete May and Carlos. I'm going to call him Carlos Eleanor Rigby.
Carlos, one of my many highlights and favorite parts of the weekend was getting ready to go
beating you at arm wrestling?
going out and film on Saturday. And little did I know I had parked right next to Carlos and his wife, and he was out on the course doing something, or he was elsewhere, and his wife was sitting in the car, just hanging out, just relaxing, and it was Saturday afternoon, and she said, all of a sudden she gets out of the car, and she's like, it's just too hot in there. I'm like, yeah, I'm thinking I would have withstood about 15 seconds in a non-running, non-air-conditioned car. I think she was in there for quite some time, and then she says that, and we start talking and about filming and photography and some other things. And later, she then asked where she can see the film that I had been shooting, and I was explaining to her to find it on my YouTube page. Well, at the end of the tournament, as everybody's leaving, getting into their cars at the parking lot, she's explaining to Carlos, hey, he's the disc golf guy, and we can find it. I said, just Google it. You will come to it. And they said, wait a minute. I said, one of my favorite moments of this weekend, and now they've doubled, but one of my favorite moments of the weekend was ending my very first video of the week with Carlos, and he had thrown a shot, and it was a beautiful shot, parking it on hole 17 at Rosedale. I didn't follow the shot. I followed Carlos and his reaction, and my video ends, if you didn't see it, my video ends with Carlos looking at me from a distance and then just grinning from ear to ear because he had just thrown this perfect shot. And I felt bad I didn't actually follow the shot, but again, I was going for a reaction, and I got one, and it was beautiful. And then Tina from Launchpad took a picture, actually. I said, wait, let me show you this, because he hadn't seen it. So she took a picture of me showing Carlos and his wife what YouTube was and how to find the video of them out on the course. And honestly, it was just it was awesome. So so many great memories, but that was one that certainly topped the charts. And speaking of memories,
I was gonna say all these players and anything to me above the 60 plus are just inspirational. I mean, that is, as a lot of people are saying, I hope to be playing at 70 or 60 or, just I am amazed. And
yeah, lots of great names, great people out there. Marty Gregoire from the PDGA was saying, Kenny Boorad had messed up essentially his article in that he had written at one point throughout the week that both Dr. Rick Vokes and Dave Greenwell both had 9 world titles, and they were both obviously then going for their 10th. And then scooping them both coming in there, getting his first, was Kenny Boorad. So congratulations. It went down in dramatic playoff fashion. If I recall, I think they went 7 holes for the playoff.
Because Pro Master 60 Plus played 4 rounds, a semis, a final
9, and then 7 more holes to eventually have Kenny Boorad Lee as your outright champion. Which
for those of you, and I've never seen Kenny play particularly, but I love watching Dr. Rick play. He is the epitome of professional, and on top of that, just a pleasure to watch throw a disc. It goes, I'm not exaggerating, it goes exactly where he wants it to go. It doesn't necessarily go very far, but
pinpoint precision and accuracy.
Pinpoint precision. It is a pleasure to watch. I'm trying to think of what was it, Pro Worlds?
Where him and Barry teamed up in 2000
Yes,
to be Pro Worlds doubles partners, bring your own partner doubles partners, and Dr. Rick makes damn near every putt.
Yeah.
And he's always going to put it in the fairway for a perfectly fine, safe, good, safe shot every single time.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. It's
quick shout out. Yeah, as you mentioned earlier, Brian Schweberger ultimately injured himself sometime during the semifinal round. You're going to see it. I'm going to release the video actually in a few minutes. You'll see it. He injures himself, and as they're wrapping up the last few holes, he's certainly in a ton of pain. You can see it. You can hear it. And he's essentially content and happy that Mike Mosier was having a great round in the semifinals, and Mosier actually came up and got him by a stroke or two, and that pushed Schwebe out of the Final Four.
So he didn't have to
and Schwebe flat out said, he's like, I maybe have just completely withdrawn or upon the Final Four, or he's like, I may have thrown the tee shot and then quit or whatever. But Schwebe was in no condition. He was absolutely not going to be playing in that Final Four had he qualified for it. So we ultimately saw Mike Mosier have a really good round, and like I said, I think got him by a stroke or two, and that ultimately is what put Mosier, who we hadn't seen throughout the week necessarily on that lead card, and so it was nice getting a little different flavor. Also, I wanted to say, the rough numbers, if I went out and did some math correctly, which I wouldn't count on, literally or figuratively, I think, do you want to take a quick guess? If you add up David Fehlberg, Johnny McRae, Barry Schultz, and Brian Schweberger, how many wins? PDGA wins.
So you're saying basically the
four most winningest players of all time, arguably? Four of them?
Yeah, four of them. I bet you they're four of the top six,
Mm-hmm.
arguably. So Fehlberg. All right, I'm gonna try to take a guess here. Fehlberg probably had 150 wins.
Okay,
I'm gonna guess. Johnny McRae, I think around 100, a little over that.
Okay,
it's 250. Barry, 150, easy.
Okay.
I guess we can't really
And
decide
Schwebe.
if it's open or versus.
No,
it
we're
just
just
says
talking.
wins.
I mean, most of them are going to be
So
wins or
3,
wins.
4, 5, and
Professional
and
wins.
we know
here.
Schwebe's at like 200 or maybe more.
Okay.
So 6. I'm going to take a wild guess and say 650.
Yeah. Add 100 to that. Yeah. Barney Davis almost on the number there. The quick math that I went out to PDGA, and again, I'm sure every single one is not fully calculated in there. Barry was winning before the internet was
Mike
invented.
Mosier has 226 wins.
I know, and he barely edges out Schwebe. Or I'm sorry, he's just underneath Schwebe's.
Did you say Mosier, or did you just say Dave, Johnny, Barry, and
Schwebe?
Schwebe?
Because they were my semifinalists. I filmed them on Friday, and then they were the same four that were on the semifinals on Saturday.
Fehlberg has 108, so I overestimated Fehlberg.
You underestimated McRae.
Oh wow, hey, yeah,
He's got 177.
Switch those two. Schultz, I said about 150. 228.
So,
wow,
and then Schwebe with 200 plus, 230.
230.
So 700.
Jesus,
I think it's like 756, 760, somewhere in that neighborhood. Just incredibly, I've deemed them the winningest foursome we've ever had on a single filmed card.
Easily.
And then you take out Schwebe with 230 wins, and you put in Mosier with 200 and plus wins, and it really doesn't change much.
That finals card had to be the most winningest card in PDGA history.
Yeah, at least that's filmed. Well, not just filmed, but
period.
That's been assembled for a round of golf.
For a competitive round of golf, yes. Wow. That is relatively amazing.
It is. It's super impressive. So, semifinals round getting released tonight. It's all edited, ready to go. I'm trying something new. I'd love the feedback from you guys. It's not live. Yeah, Smashbox is, but I've kind of switched things up a little bit, and whether it's me doing the recording or others, I've been playing around, and this has especially been happening on the women's side as well from our live coverage. I'm putting it out in a full set of 18, and I know there's pros and cons to that. I know it. I know from a marketing standpoint. I know from a personal standpoint. There's a lot of pros and cons, but I'm continuing to kind of hear the arguments one way or another. Right now, I'm very much in a phase of, here's all 18 holes. Consume them when you can.
I like 18.
And I think we've realized what happens is a lot of people consume 9. They're either distracted and or something else happens, or they just don't get to the back 9. And now, or they don't want to, there's an extra click somewhere. That's really the problem. There's one extra click usually somewhere to get to a back 9. And now having them all 18 at once just eliminates that click.
Easily. I actually just briefly looked at this past week at the Ledgestone. We saw, 2 weeks ago, I guess, we saw that CCDG had the lead card for the most part over Jomez. And I was curious. I was like, oh, wow, I wonder how that affects the numbers. And I was looking at front versus back. And as we've said, the front gets 15 to 20% more views than the back. And I keep thinking, I'm like, is that people, and I don't know, is that people watching again? Is that people, linking to it, say, hey, check this out? Is there just that much of a drop off for the final 9 of, or I don't want to say the final 9, but the back 9 of a particular
Is the course not doing it for them? Are the players not doing it for them? Are the players struggling? There's a lot of questions there.
Yeah, and to me, I was thinking, well, I wonder, because typically if you look at like view numbers, Jomez gets anywhere from like, we'll say 50 to 70,000 views within the first week or two. And I was like, well, I wonder if, because they're on second card, if the numbers are significantly lower, and they were. I mean, we're looking at 40, 30 to 40 to 50,000, depending on the event. And CCDG's was about the same as what they normally get, maybe a smidge higher. But it was kind of interesting just to see the front and back differences, and I can't find a way to justify that for any particular reason.
And I'll throw it out there because I know it's been discussed. If you follow Dixon Jowers on the Box podcast, I believe he kind of asked that very question a few weeks ago. So I don't want to make it sound like we're having original thoughts here. I mean, everyone can question this, but I think Dixon was asking the exact same question. He was also trying to, and it's funny because he's not necessarily a regular content creator like, CCDG or Jomez or the disc golf guy. And from an outsider perspective, I think he was, just that. He was really curious. Why is there such a drop off? And there's a lot of different reasons for it, and I don't think we'll ever pinpoint it, but I'd be interested to know. The other thing that I attempted during one of the rounds of the MP50s when I was out there on Thursday is I intentionally skipped over a few holes or a few shots. I definitely skipped a lot of the tap-ins. If there's 3 guys all within 20 feet and they were all routine, so to speak, tap-in putts, I was like, they all tapped in, they all got pars, we're moving to the next one. And I did that a little bit during the commentary and the coverage, and that also came with mixed reviews. For the most part, it seemed like people like it, but some people are like, no, I want to see every shot. And that's fine. I'm bored to death watching a 120-foot approach shot that just gets to within 6 feet. One could say, well, there's something to be learned about throwing approach shots. I understand that.
The approach shot I necessarily wouldn't cut up, but yeah, the tap-in,
You have a wide open 120-foot approach shot, no wind, that doesn't draw any metal.
That's my scariest shot.
Well, and maybe that's why some people want to see how it's done.
100 to 150 feet scares the crap out of me.
And that's fine. I get bored to death watching those.
You put me inside of that, I'm great. You put me outside of that, I'm great. That particular distance for me, knee knockers.
You could blindfold me.
Yeah, and you...
And I'd throw it, and then I'd still tell you not to show it on my video because I don't want to see it at any point. It's that easy.
Oh, that's great.
Anyway, so good stuff out there. I'm going to reiterate a few just thank yous. I have to thank Dynamic Disc for presenting the event, for assisting me with the coverage. We did some fun stuff out there with Danny.
Thanked them.
I know, but they're pretty awesome. But also Scott Reek and his club, the club, not just his club, the club. Everyone in Kansas City, just as always. I mean, if we know one thing,
is a great disc golf
mecca environment
and environment, community, whatever the word you want to use is. It's the first place that I particularly really thought wow, this place is phenomenal.
Mhm.
Like, and at the time they had Swope, Waterworks, Olathe. And I don't even know if Blue Valley wasn't
No,
even
Blue
at
Valley
the
didn't
time.
go into like 2008-ish.
Yeah, and at the time I thought, oh my gosh, this is like, look at these courses. These are phenomenal. And
Rosedale down under. Yep.
And to me, that it's one of those first disc golf meccas, and it always holds a special place in my heart.
Well, they did a great job. The PDGA did a great job. I met a couple of really fine gentlemen who were graciously helping me out. I know Steve Hollis out there, Mango was helping me out. Brian Kilgore from Florida wanted to make a contribution. He was helping me out, and just a ton of great people, including all of the staff, and seeing Jerry and Tina and so many people out there. So thank you, Kansas City. Thank you, PDGA Pro Masters Worlds. Great job. All right. Wow. And then seeing, I was also going to say, and Dana kind of closed out that way, seeing Barry, seeing Johnny McRae, seeing Brian Schweberg, David Feldberg, these were all people, granted a few cards ahead of me usually by the second or third round. These were all people that I've also played with. I've, of course, been filming them off and on for the last 8 years, but I used to play many weekends with Barry Schultz, or at least in his division, and occasionally on his card. Johnny McRae has been a legend in Florida, and then been on the scene more recently. David Feldberg and I, go all the way back to the late 90s of competing against one another in amateur and professional events. Brian Schweberger has toured around the country, and I've had the pleasure of playing with and against him. So there was so much more to this weekend than just filming it and putting it out for you guys. It, for me, was very personal as well, and I loved all of it. Terry beat Schwebby once, Carver says. Sounds about right.
I'm sure you did.
No, I was going to say it might even been more than once somewhere.
I know you did at Parkside.
Did he play that year?
I don't know.
That year I won and I whooped him? Yeah, Schwebby. 2003. Open win for me.
Long time ago.
Or Schwebby.
All right, let's move on. We've talked enough about all the other stuff. What do you got?
yeah. You're gonna make you want to claim to move on. All right. Conversation taking place. We're gonna shift gears right into tomorrow night. I'm gonna be arriving over at Maple Hill. I don't think I'm gonna get there in time for the actual conversation, but I might. And I'm talking about the Disc Golf Pro Tour and Steve Dodge heading up the conversation about the use of smaller baskets.
I'm sorry. What was that?
The use of smaller baskets. All right. You're a fan.
I'm only slightly joking about that.
Okay, so
I think there is a conversation that needs to be had because it is such an out there topic. Everybody's talking about it because they think that our putting game is too easy and this and that. So I'm not going to the actual conversation itself. I don't necessarily agree with it. I think that the difficulty of our sport, for the most part, is getting from the tee to the basket. It's not unlike golf. It kind of flip flops where the more difficult part in golf is on the green. The conversation, I could be completely swayed with the right argument, possibly. But where I stand now, I think the basket size we have now is an appropriate size.
Okay, fair enough. Chuck Kennedy's on the board saying wrong way to get the results they're looking for. I'd be interested for you to elaborate on that a little bit, Chuck. But let me, just like the email that I believe was sent out, let's be very clear. This is not something that's necessarily happening. This is simply a conversation among some players and others about if that is a way to go. And I think one of the conversations that I think I had with Eric McCabe this last weekend, as Robert McCall says, I'm in favor of larger baskets.
Me too. I think we should double the size of the baskets.
I think it was Eric McCabe and I that were talking, saying, putting's too easy for like 2% of the field. And Ricky and Paul and obviously a handful of others make putting look really easy because they're so damn good at it. I guess that question then is that a problem? Is it a problem that a few people have mastered that skill? Is it fair to call it that they've mastered it?
No. I mean, they have not mastered it. They miss putts.
We've
seen them.
I still don't think that doesn't. I guess I'd love to know the definition of mastering something.
They are very good at putting inside the circle. You want to make a discussion about increasing the size of the circle? I'm here for you. You want to increase, or I'm sorry, you want to take the discussion eliminating jump and step putts? I'm here for you. But, I mean, Chuck out there says that that's the wrong way, that actually it will, rather than increase scoring separation, it'll decrease it because more people will miss putts. More people are more likely to lay up. We've seen in the FPO field, in other sports, there is a difference in equipment that that men and women use. In basketball,
sure,
smaller size. Do we keep bigger baskets for FPO players because they're not as good at putting as most of the MPO, the top field, based on statistics? So by creating a smaller basket, are we going to make the FPO division that much less interesting to watch than what most of our viewers already find it? I mean, who wants to sit and watch a bunch of women miss 15-foot putts repeatedly? Our best women. And I'm not saying they would necessarily, but it's already tough. Because we say that I've always said, and you can go back in the record, say the next big jump for FPO is their putting game. When we find that 95%
inside circle
95% circle one putter, that's the next jump. We're getting the distance. Next will be the putting for FPO. That's great. MPO is there already. Great. The smaller baskets, yuck. I have to try to think about this.
And when you
as a sport in general, not just this is the 1% of the people we watch the best, the most often. Your Paul, Ricky, Simon, Eagle. Those five that, sure, they are hitting 97% inside the circle, 98% inside the circle. We have to think about the whole field. It's the same argument I had about Paige last week when she talked about wanting to be more challenged. Do we cater to the very top of our field and make those courses way more challenging, or make the baskets more challenging, or do we cater to a majority of the field and say, hey, this is what's best for our entire sport or division, as I said last week? I don't like that.
Okay, and now
convince me I'm wrong.
I want to say or clarify from what I've gathered is that they're talking about baskets that are physically smaller in the sense of height and width. So we're not just talking about going exclusively to less chains like the marksman baskets.
Not necessarily just skinnier,
but also smaller.
Shorter.
And the reference that I was given was, think of the Cam Todd basket. And for those that don't know, that was just a much smaller basket with a much smaller area to hit. And I don't want to quite liken it to the mini basket I see behind me, but you're talking about a much smaller target overall in height and width, not just necessarily less chain or a smaller, bullseye or marksman style.
I will say this. If you lower the size of the basket height closer to the ground, we're going to look stupid.
Well,
you're going to
no.
Yes.
We're going to look stupid to whom? Because in 10 years, if those are the only baskets that are out there, we won't look any different.
Because to me, a frisbee, when you throw a frisbee, you tend to throw it flat and straight.
Some better than others.
Some better than others. That is where I want my target. Straight ahead of me, flat. I don't want it down. I don't want it, in general, way up.
Yeah, I totally disagree with that. Right off the bat, a basketball hoop.
That's great. A ball you throw different places. A frisbee, in general, is you throw it back and forth. A frisbee. And a disc, to me, just feels way more natural to say, my target's in front of me. Now, again, we can add a little variety. Sometimes you lift them up. Sometimes you put them on a hill, this and that. That's fine. But I can't imagine walking up to it just feels wrong, walking up to like an 8-foot putt and having to like look down and be like, okay, because you know what everyone's going to do? Everybody's going to get onto a knee to putt. How dumb do you look then when everybody is getting on their knee to putt from 10 feet and in? And I know you're
I
not.
think it's relative, though. I mean, I understand what you're saying. To us, it might look dumb and completely
It's going to look dumb
unique
to everybody.
and unconventional. However, to the random Coca-Cola executive that comes out and observes disc golf for the first time in their life in 3 years, and they're playing on smaller baskets, they're not going to know. They're not going to say, "Why aren't those baskets bigger?" I just feel like they should be bigger and more in front of me. No one's going to say that.
No, but I think they're going to walk up and be like, "Why is everyone?" And maybe they won't. Maybe not everybody will get down on their knee to putt an 8 to 10 footer. But if you lower the basket, that's what makes sense to me, because you're going to be wanting to throw it flat. Because anytime you get angle on that disc, you run into different problems. So to me, a flat throw makes the most sense. So it's the same reason why if you're putting downhill, a lot of people take a knee. And I think if you lower the basket closer to the ground, you're going to see everybody. And again, I could be wrong. You're going to see everybody get down lower to putt, and I think that's going to look stupid to everybody. Like, why? That's kind of goofy. You getting on a knee. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
I think it's stupid they hit soccer balls off people's heads.
That's great,
right?
That
seems
fine.
Pretty obscure, doesn't it? You're running around in a field kicking a ball, and all of a sudden, someone's purposely trying to slam it off their head. I mean, that's pretty random if you think about it. And let me be very clear.
I know you're not taking a side.
I'm not.
We're doing the devil's advocate thing. I completely get it.
The smart cop, good cop, right here. The idiot cop. No, I'm not. I won't disagree. If everyone ultimately were to take a knee to throw every single putt, it seems like it would be I mean, at that point.
I love Joe Dirt's things. You don't want sponsors to think that you're taking a knee every time you're protesting. So
I do understand that. And I also, it would be a totally different element to the game if it's assumed that 9 out of 10 times your preferred stance is actually from a knee. In terms of completing the hole, I totally agree. Would be very different from what we have now.
I would sooner have us go back to tone poles.
Okay.
And just my opinion is, you hit it and goes dong.
Mm-hmm.
Cool, I got a hole in one. I would rather have us do that. You want to make putting more difficult? No chains, and all you have to do is hit a pole from 30 feet and different, whatever the width of that pole is.
I want wind chimes hanging around out there.
I'm good.
Full set of wind chimes.
I'm good with that. I think, to me, making it closer to the ground.
Okay, so what if it's not closer to the ground? Let's just say
if it's just skinnier?
Like and again, for reference, I'm looking at a mini basket shrinking directly in front of us. The basket area is just as small, but we'll say the catching area is shrunk, but it's still about the same height. Any different there?
No. I think I would be more open to that. I would be more open to saying, okay, you're going to reduce the top
catching area,
the catching area horizontally, and I mean vertically if you want. I would be better with that than lowering it to the ground.
Okay.
Personally, but and if that's what it takes, if we think that that's our problem, that we have too many people being able to hit high and stay in and hit low and stay in. And here's what I'll say. I don't think this is going to go anywhere.
And it very well may not. And that's exactly why it's a discussion tomorrow night.
I'm glad we're having the conversation.
And it's a conversation now. Luke has now multiple times said something that I very much have always said as well. When we see the marksman style tournaments, when we see those types of tournaments with the smaller baskets out there, I do very much believe that you're still going to see like a Paul McBeth and a Ricky Wysocki and some of our best putters on the planet. They're still going to be the best putters. They're still going to make the most putts, and they're going to be just fine. In fact, maybe they should be advocating for it, because very few people hit dead center pole or chains as often
as Ricky Wysocki.
I mean, it is what it is. So the best are still going to be the best. And I guess I'd have to further sit in on the conversation and say, what are we trying to accomplish? What is the end goal, end result? And then you have to pick it apart from there. And there's a lot of people on the board saying right now, I don't think it's going to do it. As Chuck has said, it's not going to create what they think it's going to create. And Chuck's, of course, very statistically driven and very analytical in that sense. So there's a good conversation to be had. And it may very well go nowhere. Here's what I do love is, like you just referenced, we can say then, well, we had that conversation. We fleshed out the pros and the cons, and we ultimately decided that's not a way we want to go or a route we want to go. But at least we had that conversation. And for that,
should be.
I think it's great.
To me, no conversation or discussion should be off the table.
Well, there's some really dumb ones, but
it should, even if they're really dumb, it should at least be brought up so everyone can laugh at that person.
And then slid across the table and just keep sliding.
Just everyone looks at it and goes, oop, move on, and laugh at that person and say, no, that's not what we should be doing. But any legitimate conversation, I'm glad Steve Dodge is bringing it up. I'm glad we're talking about it. I'm glad that it is something that we have heard a lot of people say it. I think what you'd end up, my personal opinion, is that you'd probably end up seeing the top 3 or 4 guys separate themselves even more
further,
and then everybody else in a bunch.
Yeah, I mean that is certainly what could happen.
Think of this though. How many would that change? A lot of people's styles of putting.
Yes,
because
it would have to.
Because you see, like, we'll just say Jessica Weiss has a nice little Anheuser putt. We've seen people with Heiser putts, like Double G, and just funny that they're a couple, but that they're putting it different ways. Double G's Heiser putt is that's not going to work very well on a basket that has less chains, and it is more likely he's going to have to Heiser putt into the pole. Right now, I'm just going to call them the spider chain configuration with all the chains. Double G's putt works great. You put those on some of the older baskets, those are going to spit and cut right through. You're talking about a monumental change to the game, not just a target. It's not just like, oh, we're shrinking up the target, we're trying to do this. You're talking a monumental change to people's putting styles.
What if they just happen? And just to further that, what if the Pro Tour brought the exact same set of baskets and put them on each Pro Tour course that it was just played for the Pro Tour?
So you're saying bring along
18 baskets.
Yeah.
And by Monday, I'll just throw out a date.
They're out
by
there,
Monday. Play starts on Friday. By Monday, all 18 of these baskets are then on the course, and they're used for Pro Tour and Pro Tour exclusively. Maybe they're in other parks, but let's say they're not. How would that sit with you? And it became, let's just throw it out and say it became a Pro Tour thing. Yay or nay?
I say nay personally. I think somebody else made a point, like, you don't go to a basketball court and play with a 3-foot hoop, and then you go to an NBA game and everyone's playing with a standard size hoop.
Correct.
You traditionally, you want to watch people do what you can do, but way better. And if you are given, because how soon before people are like, yeah, we have these really big baskets, but everybody likes watching the smaller baskets. Let's us put those in. Let's get
Okay.
let's put these in our course.
Sure.
And then eventually everyone moves to a smaller basket. Then is that good or bad? I don't know, but I don't think it's going to happen. I'm glad the conversation's happening.
Okay.
That's all I'm doing.
All right. Well, tune in for that. I believe it's taking place tomorrow. I think I got an email about
Is it live? Are they doing like a live?
I think they're talking about doing it
broadcast?
live, and it's going to be, I think, taking place at the Sap House, or at least somewhere over at the Vibram. Sorry, MVP Open.
$1.
Yes.
When you see Steve from MVP, I want you to just hand him a
yes,
$5.
I will.
Like, I'm sorry, dude. I know this too.
And here's $5 from Johnny as well. So, and I've honestly been really good about it until all of a sudden today.
Yeah, today has been the worst.
The week leading into it. Yeah, the conversation. I apologize. I know Steve Dodge actually sent me a message to remind me, but
Nerd
it's
says,
taking place tomorrow
I will
night.
not tune in for this.
Okay.
That's
you can
fine.
tune in just to scream at your computer. That's all right. You can do that.
I would be interested to hear a lot of people. I would love to see a full event with our top players play this type of course and see what the statistics are. Because we see a lot of these people. What's the difference in putting inside the circle is really the only thing that matters to me.
Well, it's out there, dgpt.com, and it's just posed as should baskets be smaller? A panel discussion Wednesday, 8:20. I think he means 8:22.
Yeah.
6 o'clock Eastern, so at 5 o'clock Central tomorrow, taking place at the Maple Hill Sap House, and then they're talking about having it streamed. I hope audio is going to be good. I'm now starting to question a few things, but
hey, that's not our problem.
It's not our problem. And what is my problem is tomorrow, myself and one of our cameramen, Chad, we fly out, and I think we get into Boston around 5:30, so we're going to more than likely miss most of this conversation. If you want to pick us up at the Boston airport, you could do that. Otherwise, we're going to take a train, which doesn't sound fun.
Well, Disc Golf Nerd says that he will not be tuning in, but one of the things that we're going to tune in for is Disc Golf Nerd's review that we have this week.
Let's do it.
So Disc Golf Nerd has reviewed the Rat this week.
Wow.
So we are going to take a quick view of his review of the Rat.
What's up, Smashies? This month we're taking a look at yet another flat-topped, overstable approach disc from our friends at Innova. This one is the Star Rat. Now, the Rat and the AVR X3 were released relatively close to each other. They definitely have a similar feel, but noticeably different flight paths out there on the course. The Rat definitely stretches more distance, more glide. It is definitely less overstable, less fade, and a little bit more natural turn to it. It's not flippy by any means, but you can get it to hold a turnover start to finish if you give it Anheuser. The AVR X3, considerably more beefy, lower glide, more overstable, more fade, and less natural turn. The Rat really kind of reminds me of like a Zone or an AVR X3 that's already really broken in. So if you like that feel, but you want something that's not quite as overstable, but it's still not very touchy, you can still throw it with power and commit to a shot with it, not worry about it flipping over too much accidentally. But if you want to pull it over an Anheuser, either on a forehand or on a backhand, you can get it to do that. It'll have a little bit more distance, stretch out a little bit farther, and it ends up being a little bit more versatile in terms of that as well. The Star Rat has a great feel in the hand, that classic kind of flat-topped, overstable approach disc feel, releases easily, it flies great. I really connected with it out there on the course in testing. The Star Plastic, you guys all know about Star Plastic. It's a premium plastic with a great feel. This particular one has a nice flexible feel in the hand that I like quite a bit. And overall, Star Rat, I think, is a total winner from Innova. I think a lot of people will dig these. Again, if you tried the AVR X3, but you find it to be a little bit more overstable than you're looking for on approach or off the tee, the Star Rat could be a great option for you to check out. That's my review for this month. Big thank you to Smashbox for having me be a part of the show. If you'd like to find the full review of this disc, the AVR X3, and almost 200 other ones, you can just head over to my YouTube channel, Disc Golf Nerd, search me out on Google. I'll check you guys later. Cheers.
Thank you, Disc Golf Nerd, for your review of the Innova Rat. It is much appreciated. Everything that you do for the show, we obviously love, and thank you very much. And you can see, like I said, go out to his web page and YouTube. I think at one point he even had a podcast or something. I don't know. Disc Golf Nerd is an asset to the community, and you can also catch a lot of his stuff now on the Pro Tour page. So he will have a review at some point for the Pro Tour from Disc Golf Nerd.
Yes, thank you, and thank you. And speaking of other great supporters and smashes out there, Luke from Australia, I believe, is tuned in. Luke letting me know that some details for a pretty sizable event. I'm not going to give out every single thing that's going to get talked about, but I think in the next few weeks, you're going to hear us talk a little bit more about what's going on over in Australia. As they're working on the Australian Disc Golf Championships at the end of November. I think
I got my money on the koala.
You should, or the Tasmanian devil. We'll ultimately have a conversation with probably a couple different people from over there relating to the event as we move forward. Again, taking place in November. I think we're going to have some pretty cool stuff going on relative to that event. So stay tuned for more information and updates, but you can find it now, facebook.com/AustralianDGC out on Facebook. Facebook.com/AustralianDGC. So check it out and stuff. All right.
How many Crocodile Dundee jokes?
I won't be able to make any because I saw the movie, 25? 30 years ago?
Everyone's going to say, like, this is a knife.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to go rewatch before I could actually feel comfortable making any references.
And you will. You'll probably watch it on there. You'll watch
it is like a 24-hour flight, so maybe I'll find the time.
You could watch 1 and 2. I'm just saying. Chuck Kennedy brought to our attention that the PDGA Player and Rookie of the Year points are updated. So we're going to quickly go through these right now for the men's Player and Rookie of the Year standings for July of 2018. It looks like at this point, tied for first place, Eagle Wynn McMahon and Richard Wysocki at 100. Tied. I know, tied. At 157. Not Tide Pods, Tide points.
Wow.
Third place, Paul Macbeth, trailing by 15 points, followed up by Chris Dickerson, Kevin Jones, Paul Ulibarri, and Nicola Castro. In the women's side, I would not have guessed this. Leading right now for Women's Player of the Year, Katrina Allen at 204 points over Paige Pierce, who's at 203 points. So a single point separating those two. Third place is Sarah Hokum at 175 points, followed up by Jessica Weiss at 155 and Lisa Fakis at 141. So that is where our players.
And then if you go back. You were on the right page. Go back to the highlighted people in green.
The highlighted people in green are your rookies
that are vying for Rookie of the Year titles.
Currently, on the men's side, we have 2. Make sure I'm not wrong. Yep. 2 players tied at 68 points. I'm sorry, in 68th place at 15 points. You have Anthony Perkins and Mason Ford, both out of Texas. So right now it's a Texas race, but we're only halfway through the year. And on the women's side, Missy the Cannon Gannon.
I don't think she goes by that.
No, but I'm going to start it.
You should.
I'm
okay.
rolling. Well, the only other Ganon that I know is a big bad guy in The Legend of Zelda, and she does not resemble that at all. So I'm going to go with Missy the Cannon Gannon. Out of Cold Springs, New York, she has 23 points, followed up by Lauren Butler out of Elk River, Minnesota at 22 points, and Kimberly Aycock out of Tulsa, Oklahoma with 20 points. So we have a very close race on the women's side as well.
All right, so those are all released. If you need to find out more information, go out to pdga.com. There is a link right there on the website so that you can figure out how it's all tabulated. Looks like a bunch of numbers. Maybe there's a formula, statistics, things, math, tough stuff like that. I leave all my math to Robert McCall. I hear him always calling out for it, and so I leave all my math over to Robert. I'm excited. This is going to be yet another iteration of the Maple Hill event taking place. In fact, I went as far as even actually typing in maplehillopen.com because I was going to look for
How many names are we on?
Well, I couldn't name every single one of them because I haven't been to them all.
And there's probably people that were screaming at us earlier in the podcast, and I don't know if we cleared it up. Ricky Wysocki is a 2-time winner of this, 2015 and 2017. So I know up until last year, we'd always talked about there was no repeat winners, and other than Kale, before it was the Maple MVP, Vibram, whatever you want to call it, there was no repeat winners. but actually Ricky Wysocki, 2-time winner, 2015, 2017.
Okay, so I mean, it was the Marshall Street Disc Golf Championships, I believe, was the very original iteration of this. I know it. I mean, again, Steve has just kind of shifted some words around because it was for a while the Vibram Open, and then it was also at one point the Maple Hill Open presented by Vibram. Are those entirely different? Yeah, I guess they are. So there's been a lot of different names that we've seen of this event taking place, but and now, of course, the MVP Open at Maple Hill.
I'm excited. I saw the MVP baskets out on the course. They look really nice, and I'm just in general excited for the event. It's one of my favorite events every year.
And also, we're going to see that it's 3 rounds, and I go back to thinking about Ledgestone a few weeks ago, that being a 4-round event. This event forever has been a 4-round event where then they had a cut. You famously, if you made the cut, you got paid on the final day. You were into the cut line, so to speak, or into the cash line. And then we think about the Memorial being a 4-day event. So really right now, and this is where I'm going with it, is right now they kind of stand alone as the only non-majors that are 4-round, 4-day events are the Memorial and the Ledgestone.
Let's change that.
And we'll see. I think that's another conversation that could be had.
I know. I think from the way things are moving, we've seen most of the elite level events become 3-round events. And I hope next year we continue to see that trend. I hope.
4 rounds at Beaver State, but over 3 days.
Over 3 days. But even that, I would love to see kind of a standard where elite level events are 3 rounds, majors are 4 rounds, and then maybe your world championships is a 5-round event or something. Because it would be advantageous for the Memorial, because we see the Las Vegas Open right before that.
Mm-hmm.
So to have that a 3-day event, make Las Vegas 3 days, make Memorial 3 days. Beaver State, I would rather see it 3 rounds. I know they want to do 2 on each, and getting it 2 on one day, that's fine. There's tradition, blah, 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 blah. Make it 3 rounds. Pick a course that you play twice. Just whatever one you think is best. Ledgestone, drop your 4th round. 3 at Eureka's plenty. Ask AJ Risley. And Maple Hill, I really hope goes to 3 rounds as well. A lot of people say, "Oh, these are all."
Well, it already is.
Yeah, I mean, in general, Maple Hill, yeah, it is 3 rounds now.
Yeah, and it's going to continue that way.
Yeah, and I think that having 3 rounds for our elite level events, it adds to the consistency. And like I said, I know there's tradition. The Memorial has always been 4 rounds, but I don't know. I would just love to see standardization across the board.
Well, and let's take that a step further. You know, the Memorial, and by no means is this picking on them, but I think back to the Memorial. At one point, the Memorial was 3 rounds. And at one point, the Memorial, I believe, was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday ordeal. Mm-hmm. And then they moved into being a Thursday, Friday, Saturday ordeal. And I was like, wow, that's many years ago. That was kind of crazy. It really was.
Starting on Thursday.
And then they went as far as saying, hey, we're going to have 3 rounds. And I think some of the amateurs were only playing for 3 rounds on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And I'm like, huh?
That's
like
crazy.
So, I mean, we continue to grow and evolve and try out different things. So it'll be interesting to see how all of this continues to shake out. But it was interesting to see the Pro Masters World Championships. If you played in one of the larger divisions, they had 4 rounds, 1 round per day. There was a semis on Saturday morning, and then the final 9 on Saturday afternoon. So 5 rounds plus a final 9. That felt right to me. I was simply, of course, an observer and a film guy. That felt about right to me. So I'll be interested to see. And here's the bigger question, to kind of go off the rails just a bit. The attendance at the Pro Masters Worlds, and we kind of touched on it last week. It wasn't. What's the word? It wasn't overwhelming. It was not overwhelming. 140 some. 137. So here's the question. Lots of PDGA resources and people 6, 8, 10 PDGA people there, roughly. I'll just make up a number, roughly 6 to 10. Lots of expenses, the host club, all of these energies and efforts put into this event of 137 people. And of course, I'm not taking anything away from the event that I just talked about.
It was a great event.
It's a great event. Should that much energy and time and resources be put into an event that has 137 people? Could it be recombined with Pro Worlds, with the regular MPO and FPO?
No. I think we've severed that cord.
For what, 2 years?
I don't want to go. No, I'm just saying I don't want to go back.
Why not?
Because once you add in another 140 people, or the Ultra World article showed that, hey, when it's, and to be fair, I wasn't a big fan of the Ultra World article, because really it says, well, since 2017 we've been declining. It's like, great, we've declined for 2 years now. There are other spots.
But you just got done saying
next
we've
year,
severed that cord. So
I know. I'm saying next year we could see 180 people show up, and they'll be like, "Oh, look,
is that enough?" That's my question.
But here's
the 180 enough.
Here is why I don't want to combine them. You will be taking away some of the focus from the MPO. You will be reducing the number of places that can host Pro Worlds. Right now, there are a lot of places that have 2 or even 1, depending on how Pro Worlds wants to go, 2 really good courses in your area. We are going to run into the issue that, some people complained about at Ledgestone. We're saying, okay, well, how come the MPO get the premier course? Everybody else is on kind of the good course. That's not, how fair is that? That now, do the Masters want to be second fiddle to MPO? Do they care? I don't know if they do.
Well,
because I've said up and down. I'm sorry, PDGA. I don't care about the Masters Worlds.
Ouch.
It makes, and I'm a Masters age player.
Jerk.
I'm
face.
very happy to see all these players play. And you put together some good videos, but ultimately, in 2 years, who's going to remember? Who wins the Pro Masters? Who won Pro Masters 3 years ago, Terry? In 2015.
Ken Climo?
I don't know. Maybe he won.
Yeah, Climo won. Climo won.
Okay.
And I was going to say 2 years ago was Johnny McRae.
2 years ago, sir. When did Shasta win?
He didn't.
I know. But
You almost tricked me.
I almost tricked you. But in general, I unfortunately, we have to get into the mentality, just like other sports. Age-protected divisions mean less than the open divisions. I'm not saying they're worthless. I'm not saying they're meaningless. I'm saying they mean less. They mean less. It's harsh but true. And I want to celebrate the legends of our sport. I want to celebrate these wonderful athletes that will kick all of our butts.
Mm-hmm.
But when you combine them into MPO, you are going to run into issues again with host cities having problems. Now you need to make sure to have 4 good courses at least. You need to make sure that you have twice or 3 times the staff. If you have more courses,
sure.
I mean, in general, for your course. And then not only do you maybe bring a little more spotlight onto to your Masters age players, you're taking a little bit of spotlight away from your MPO players, whether you like it or not. Then you also can't have your Dave Felberg, who's going to play both.
Well, and
is that's I know that's a fraction.
Totally, yeah, and that's a secondary concern to me.
A sliver.
I don't care if he in particular has to make a decision to play one or the other.
I get that, but we have 8 to 10.
It's great. We have the ones that can double dip.
Yeah, we have
but
8 to 10
I don't think we need
players
to
who
cater
can.
to them.
I don't think so either. But to me, I'm more concerned about what the MPO field and FPO field. I don't even care about focus. I care about environment. I want them to be on the premier courses. Because do you think we're going to hear complaints if the Masters are on courses that are deemed not as quality or not as competitive as some of the MPOs? Or do you think they're going to be fine saying, no, that's cool. let them deal with the 9,500 course.
They should.
We're good with the 6,500 foot course.
They should.
I know they should.
I feel like they should, and I'll use an example of that, and maybe there was some other reason or logic behind it. Going to the Pro Masters Worlds in Kansas City this weekend, I thought of 2 courses that I've played as a professional player that weren't in play for the Masters this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't play Cliff Drive, which I know is very challenging, which I've played in the past, and they didn't play Blue Valley, which is also very challenging. They didn't play either of those courses, and I'm not sure any of them
would complain about that.
Would have been like, oh my gosh, I didn't get that 9,000-foot Blue Valley course in that 100-degree weather. I don't know that any of them would have complained about that. So they shouldn't be playing, and I'll say the same thing, and kind of how I feel about FPO. The FPO shouldn't be playing the same course as the MPO. I don't think MPM should be, or MP40 should necessarily be playing. And sometimes, if the course fits into just the right category or has the right style, they can.
Different tee pads, maybe.
Maybe different tees, maybe not. There's going to be some courses that perfectly do suit both. But I think there's plenty of courses that don't. So I don't know if course concern is my biggest challenge there.
Number of courses.
I understand what you're saying in terms of
more so
the overall feel and perception and the vibe. I just know that I'm going to attend 4 world championships this year: the juniors, the amateurs, the masters, and the Open. And I see the energies and the resources that are put into each one of those, and I think we've spread ourselves out. And in a lot of ways, that's great. I love the expansion. And then I can also turn around and say, all right, we have just now spread out all of those resources over a 4 individual weeks, usually going from weekend to weekend. You're talking about 8 to 10 days, and you're talking about our staff of 6 or 8 or 10 at the PDGA. And then I think about the finances that are involved with that. You just said you might need double the staff. Well, what's cheaper, to have 3 extra people somewhere, or 6 extra people somewhere, or to send every one of those people to an entirely separate city for a week? I mean, you can break it down how you want to look at the amount of resources. So anyway, it's a conversation. We've beat it to death. We'll move on. But to me and others, you look at 137 people and you think, is there a way that it's more, I'll use the term economical, but not just in terms of dollars and cents, but is it more logical and economical to realign this?
But do we want to think, do we want to be more future-proof? What happens when we want to get 200 players, 230, 250 player MPM or above aged players? Are we looking at in 5 years going, well, geez, our MPM players are, they are like 250 strong, and our open players are sitting at 170. Now, should we separate again? Or do we want to continue the way we have been in the past, is to limit those fields and say, you have 140 players max that your divisions can handle. And that's because that's what our club can handle. That's what our area can handle. And we want to make sure that MPO has enough players that they have it. The way we have it right now, I really like that that really there almost is no limit to the number of players virtually. If the Open men this year wanted to have 50 more players, they could probably accommodate them with tee times and things like that. It would be close. Right?
I don't think so. I think it's full.
Is it full?
Yeah, I mean, they've got 2 courses, and I think they're slowly shut your face. I think they are slowly reducing the available women's spots because the women are not signing up for it. So they're slowly picking a few of the women's spots in a timely fashion and saying if more women don't get signed up, so on and so forth, they're slowly taking away from those and then now granting them on the MPO side because it's at capacity. This event is at capacity.
Because right now the women don't fill a course.
No.
So you could put a pool of pro players on that course.
Well, I mean, you're talking
then
about shotgun and,
swishing,
and
shuffling
tee
after 2
times.
days
Yeah,
or something. I agree. There's logistics, but I prefer the separation for future proof and expanding. If our sport is truly growing like we hope and think it will be, the Masters field is only going to be getting bigger. The pro side will only be getting bigger.
Sure, and that's a perfectly fine way to look at it.
That is my ultimate thought, as well as the places that can comfortably host pro worlds only having X amount of players, as opposed to bringing in so many more.
Okay, well, switching off of that into a slightly different conversation, when I had made an Instagram post this weekend showing some of our top 4 MPM players, I got an interesting comment back on Instagram that had stated, I don't think you should be able to straddle the Open and Masters divisions. I think once you play Masters, you're in the Masters division for good. And I simply replied with why. And because I don't follow that logic. And they replied back saying, it's too highly favors the people that can be competitive still in Open, but happen to age qualify for Masters. Johnny, Dave Felberg, Patrick Brown, Barry, all come to mind. It should only be allowed in some events, maybe USDGC and Worlds. And I'm bringing it up. I completely disagree with that in every possible way. I think if you're basically trying to punish someone for saying, hey, you're 40 and you're really good, so you have to stay in the 40 division and just dominate them?
You either, I think it sounds like maybe the argument could be, and I don't agree with it, for majors. Kind of like as a player who could play Open or amateur, I'm stuck in Open now because I've cashed.
Yeah.
Maybe you kind of treat it like that and you say, listen, if you go to the Masters, you go to the Masters. You're not welcome back for Open majors.
Yeah, which doesn't make sense, though, because
I agree it doesn't make sense.
It's almost backwards in the sense that, like, hey, we want you to stay in the division that you're probably going to dominate. You need to just stay there in Masters and dominate Masters. Don't come back to Open, where you might win or take second or third. Don't come back here. We need you to stay in Masters where you're going to win by 20.
I know that sounds silly. You stay in Open,
and you can't get into Masters.
The minute you play Masters, you're stuck in Masters.
Yeah, again.
And I agree, it doesn't make any sense.
Anyway, it was a post.
It's a thought. It's a bad one. I don't like it. But again, it's a conversation that we like to talk about.
So, Kyle Weir 22 on my Instagram. I'll call you out. Anyway, I thought it was an interesting point of view, nonetheless.
Chris Young says next year at Vermont Worlds for Masters, they're expecting over 200.
Pro Master. Where? What?
Chris Young.
Yeah, he said something about they're at 282. They can take 288, and they're at 282.
Chris Young
right
says
now.
Next year for Masters Worlds in Vermont, we will certainly get over 200.
Okay, yeah. I apologize. So next year, Pro Masters Worlds, which just took place in Kansas City, is moving up to Vermont, where we're seeing Pro Worlds this year. Will we? Is it regional? Is it time of year?
Sure.
Is it amenities?
Would
you rather be?
Was it? I think it was either Kim or maybe it was Nova that actually made a post saying, these are the reasons why it's possible that the Kansas City drew less people. And I think you have mentioned it. Who wants to go to Kansas City in August?
It's hot.
It's hot. And she had said, it's very central to the country, which means it's the same distance that everyone's like, oh, it's central to everything, but that just means it's also just as far for everybody.
Sure.
Depending on how you look at it. And because we saw a couple of the top rated FP40 players not play.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't there. You're Elaine King, you're Leslie Todd. And Elaine could have played other divisions as well. I'm just in general. And so having it like this, maybe here's a thought, Terry. We're having issues with some of the events, some of our majors, people or clubs taking on this particular burden, we'll say. There are majors for 2019, I think, that have not been claimed yet. Maybe it's 2020.
Yeah, I don't think 20.
But
I think
what if I told you, hey, guess what? Your club wants to do Pro Worlds in 2020. That means in 2021 you need to do Masters Worlds. You combine that. You say, if you want one, you have to take the next year. Like, I just think about it because that's the way Vermont happens to kind of be that way, where it's in that general area.
Mhm.
What if you told somebody that, it's a combined thing, so that we don't have, there's less worrying about, well,
securing stuff and
securing these issues.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair,
because if you can
there's
host,
a great added benefit to that, because you could, as the host club, you could say, hey, you're not just sponsoring it for this year, and we're not just having people here this year. This is a repeat thing. You're going to build a little bit of that. I know Chuck talked about that many, many years ago, about building that relationship, because what happens is you go to a Worlds, you do a ton of promotion, you get all these people on board, you get the entire community surrounded and by it, and everybody comes to town for 6, 8, or 12 days, and then they leave, and you may not hold a Worlds there for 10 or 20 or 30 years. Here, you have a little bit to build upon by saying, hey, we're doing it this year, and guess what? We're doing it again next year. I mean, dare I say, can you say GBO success and model? I mean, as they year after year build on it and continue to expand, and then the community can fully get behind it, because now the community is benefiting from that event every single year. So there's something to be said about that.
You could almost do the same thing for amateur and junior Worlds. But
sure.
I know right now
sure.
we have junior Worlds locked up.
Yeah, but the idea is there for sure.
Because everybody is fighting for amateur Worlds.
It's easier to host, and it's less of a financial struggle.
It's way less of a financial struggle because you're dealing a lot more with product as opposed to cash.
Mm-hmm.
So it's less of a financial struggle. I don't know. I just think that there might be something to be said about that for our majors to help solidify some of the potential, because there isn't a lot of notoriety in hosting Masters Worlds. It's a nice thing to do, but not a lot of golfers look at it like, oh, cool, like we do with Pro Worlds. And I think you if you were to dovetail into a nice Masters Worlds, it's a little bit more exposure. You kind of get a general preview of what you might have. Just a general thought. So there you go, PDGA. That one's on you for free.
It is, and Johnny is only like 3 steps away from saying, you know what you should do.
No,
he's
I wouldn't
right
go
on
that.
the cusp of that. It's telling you what you should be doing.
I am never going to say what you should do. I am going to say these are ideas that could be done.
All right. Well, those are, lots of random thoughts as the World Championships. Of course, now we're going to be shifting MVP, then the World Championships comes right after that. Then you're talking about a national tour immediately following that. We're going to see an interesting split, and I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but you're going to see some of our top players are going into Canada to compete there while Delaware happens. And seeing Delaware on the national tour scene for the first time should be a lot of fun. I'm excited to be out there for it. And then you've got the Hall of Fame, a few weeks later, U.S. women's mixed in there. So there is still a ton of golf and a lot of things to unfold over the next few weeks. And then always, of course, the USDGC and then the race to the championship title over on the Disc Golf Pro Tour. So, all right, Johnny, I think we can wrap things up for the regular show. I've got a particular disc to give away during our after show, of course, for one of our lucky Patreon subscribers and supporters that we have. We appreciate each and every one of you. Just as I mentioned this weekend when I saw a few of the people I'd mentioned saying they were Patreon supporters, either of Smashbox and or the Disc Golf Guy, wherever you choose to support one or both of us or the entire media concept, we appreciate each and every one of you. So got a little giveaway in the after show. All right, we're going to close it out. It was great having a conversation with Kim Giannola, or Giannola.
Giannola. Slipped in the A there.
I know. I was thinking about you. I was like, why did I just do that? Kim Giannola, your FP40 Pro Masters World Champion of Team MVP. Of course, and all of our other Pro Masters World Champions that I had the pleasure of filming and hanging out with and experiencing in that great city, Kansas City, both Missouri and Kansas. That's another topic. So for Johnny V and myself, Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy, that's podcast 209. Stick around for the after show. Things get crazy, including a giveaway. We love you guys, and we'll see you then when you step inside the Smashbox.
Thank you to our $2 and above patrons. Your name is listed below in the credits. If you are interested in being listed as a producer in the SmashBoxxTV credits and supporting this and other fine podcasts, please visit patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SmashBoxxTV podcast 209 after show. Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy, along with Johnny V, and we just got done going on and on and on about World Championships and formats, ideas, strategies,
Locations,
attendance, all sorts of things, and really, I can summarize it or wrap that all up and say we currently, I think, have some good problems to have. We're talking about how many world championships, where they're located, who they're benefiting, who they're for, what their intended purpose is. And these are all great conversations to be had as our sport continues to grow. And large-scale events, get put on the map, ideally earlier than any other event. Our majors are put on that map, and then you see your pro tours and your national tours get built around those, and then next thing you know, there's an actual logical traveling tour that's kind of formed throughout for those players that are continuing. It will be interesting as we fast forward. We think about some of the old school players. I think about the Winnie crew, the Dave Felbergs, Avery Jenkins, Al Sugar Shack, Todd Branch. Look them all up. Those guys and those types. And then now fast forward all these years and who we have living on the road, who, whether it's a van or an RV or a bus or whatever, and how they're getting around and truly making disc golf their full-time career by being on tour. I think the ultimately, of course, along with the rest of the growth is how many will we have in 10 years? Will there be 50 vans, 50 Sprinter van type or RVs just constantly en route? We've got 5, 8, 10, 20 right now. I mean, if we had to sit down and really count how many vans / RVs are on the road, maybe that'd be a great question out there on the board. How many can you name? What are there? Yeah, there's got to be. And of course, not everyone's in a van or an RV, but quite a few are. And then, AJ Risley, the disc golf boy, he's in his Prius full-time. Madison Walker, full-time in a Accord type car, some kind of little Honda. Yeah, there's a lot of them out there, so it's pretty cool to see. All right, in an after show, as always, we kind of toss out a few rules. Not that I don't think any apply anyway. But we don't really have too much for rules. We love to interact with you. Some people say, I have a question, or I would love for you to clarify this, or whatever the case might be. Please do so. Best way to get at us is the YouTube chat. If you're following us on Facebook, we appreciate that as well. Unfortunately, we kind of ignore it during the show.
And Twitch.
Or Twitcher. We have a Twitcher out there?
I can look.
I'm sure we do. We need more Twitchers in our sport. That's what we need. Chuck Kennedy's been out on the board. Alan Risley's been out on the board, and many of our regulars. Cool One, Carver G. We had an early appearance by none other than Dad's Drunk, who was out on the board earlier. I think it was a way early night for him, but good to see all of you guys. I do want to quickly follow up. There was a challenge or two related to Scott Stokely's Legends.
Disc Golf History and Legends. Not this week, but last week we tried to get and work with Greg Hosfeld, and there was a problem with some internet and a roommate and some Netflix, and ultimately it didn't end up happening. So what we did this week is, because we weren't 100% sure on what was going on, we did do that on Wednesday night. We recorded it. We did not put it live. So you can go out to our YouTube page, or if you happen to be a podcast listener of Disc Golf History and Legends, there is a wonderful interview between Greg and Scott. And I think Greg is, as we know, a legend of the game. He was one of the very first touring pros. And what I didn't know is he made his ends meet by doing stand-up comedy, which I was unaware of. He was also one of the first golfers to get national recognition on television on the Dave Letterman show. He did a stupid human trick. And if you go out to Facebook or YouTube, you can actually find that. So go ahead and take a listen to it. It's about an hour long. It's out on, if you haven't done it already, please go ahead and subscribe to the Disc Golf History and Legends podcast. It's out there on all of your podcasting feeds. We will probably put it on our feed, maybe just a little bit longer. But if you are enjoying it, please, please, please go out and subscribe. It'll show a little bit more interest, and we'll be able to gauge some numbers a little bit better as well.
Is it fair to say, what do you have, 5, 6, 8 of those in the can, so to speak?
About 8 of them, yeah.
Is Scott Stokely, who's having more fun, the Scott Stokely or his interview?
The answer is always Stokely.
Okay.
He is always having a lot of fun. He loves to reminisce. He loves to talk with some of his peers and even predecessors, for that matter. And he's doing better and better every show. He's realizing what his limitations were and how to get around them, and he's becoming a much better interviewer. Overall, I can't stress enough how much fun Scott is having. And some of it really does show on the podcast.
Good. Do you know who's on deck?
Nope.
Or
I usually find out tomorrow morning. Scott usually messages me and says, "Hey, I have XYZ on," and I'm like, "Awesome, let's roll, dude." So,
okay, fair enough. All right, as I read from the board, Greg threw mini disc. And I'll say in 2007. When I was the tournament director for the AM Worlds, one of the conversations that took place was having Greg do stand-up comedy or some form of a routine as part of the nightly entertainment that we were providing at AM Worlds. And so Greg has forever been an entertainer. He's also been a writer. You've seen, for those who are a little bit more old school, when you saw your old Disc Golf World News or some of the other publications, Greg was a frequent contributor and author within those. He was, I think one of his claim to fame for sure was always taking pictures of street signs that had some other, double meaning or something to disc golf or whatever the story was that he was narrating. And I don't want to reduce him by any means to just that, but when I think of Hosfeld, I always think of these street sign pictures that he always takes and had included in a lot of his articles. Such a hardworking, dedicated, passionate,
they didn't touch
enormously
on it.
Deep well of knowledge.
Yeah, and they didn't touch on it much, but they did mention at the very end of the interview, Greg was dead for 37 minutes at one point. He had some heart surgery. I think it was all part of the surgery, and now he's clearly recovering and getting better. Doesn't seem to stop what he's doing, even though he probably should slow down. So there's some good history there.
Yeah, he's and then you'll see him, talk about lying in his hospital bed one day and how he's taking these medications and shouldn't be doing the X, Y, and Z. And then the next day he's like, oh yeah, I poured some concrete and relocated 6 holes and removed brush on 4 others. It's like, simmer down. Take care of yourself, buddy. All right, Johnny, it looks like you've got, are you almost ready for the SmashBoxxTV giveaway?
I am ready for it.
All right. Well, I've got a special one. I know I've given my props out to Dynamic Disc for presenting the Worlds as well as the coverage, but in favor of Dave Felberg and Patrick Brown, who are Latitude 64 winners or team members who won World Championships, I've got sweet little dagger action from Latitude 64. This comes with that beautiful Tear Bear stamp. And I thought there couldn't be any more fitting. It's really hard to line that up. I'm not smart. Any more fitting of a time to give away a dagger produced by Latitude 64. And, of course, again, teammates and sponsored players in Dave Felberg and Patrick Brown, your MP40 and your MP50 winners this weekend. So we can give that away.
All right. So for those of you that don't know, even though I go through this every week, patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV, Patreon, SmashBoxxTV. You can, if you are a supporter, we love you. For, as I say, for just about the price of an airport beer, you can be a supporter of SmashBoxxTV for the entire year.
Wow.
It's, for
what
as little,
a deal.
For as little as $1 a month, you are eligible to get entered into the weekly drawing. And
can I get on a payment plan for that? How does that work?
You can, Terry. You can get on a monthly payment plan.
Wow, and for as little as $1 a month?
For as little as $1 a month. And let me
That's
just say,
4 quarters.
There was a little discussion. I'm going to go on a slight tangent here on one of the web boards about somebody in CCDG's Patreon, and someone saying, "Can I just send you $20? I don't want to pay a middleman." And I said, and Ian was kind and said, "I would, we're happy to take.
Yeah.
We're happy to take all support.
Let me just support him."
And he's
Terry at ProDiscGolfer.com. Just send it over there.
Johnny V at SkipAce.com. And so Ian's like, I'll start up a spreadsheet for all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, just as an FYI, I'm going to get on my soapbox here. Patreon isn't just a middleman. It's not like you're just using them to pass money. Patreon supports and has a lot of nice features for creators. Not only does it organize all your membership and organize it based on the amount of membership, it also makes it very easy for us to email or communicate with supporters. There isn't like an awkward, hey, I gave you $30 this year. Does that go for 2 years? Or is that 1 year? Do I now have to come back to you after a year and be like, now, was it $1?
Sure.
And on top of that, we do have Patreon exclusives, things that only the patrons can see and get. If someone
Smash cuts.
Yeah, exactly, the smash cuts. For Ian, sometimes it is the champs versus chumps. So now, if you're a supporter, you send Ian $20. Does he have to send you a list of 12 hidden YouTube things?
Sure.
I'm just saying, Patreon is more than just a middleman. They do a ton, so which is why,
and they take like a 3% processing fee.
It's a 5%.
5%.
It's 5% processing fee. So well worth it. It also integrates really well into other features for if we end up like, let's say we want to do T-shirts, and we say, oh, guess what? Our $3 and above patrons get T-shirts. We can work with that and integrate it into other online services. There's a whole bunch of stuff. For us, particularly, our patrons get early podcast release. So if you're not watching this live, you're probably listening to it on Thursday. If you're a Patreon supporter, you get it Wednesday night. Literally the minute the broadcast ends, I do a little bit of uploading and moving, and you get access to this. So you get access to it a little bit sooner. Depending on what your industry is, Patreon can be a very, very helpful beneficial work. So that's my plug for Patreon. I told Ian, I said, you do what you want to do.
Yeah,
But ultimately, everybody likes support in one way or another. Patreon just makes it really easy.
Exactly, and I will follow that up because some of you will say, yeah, I don't like the middleman, or I don't really do technology. I don't trust PayPal. I mean, or whatever.
Yep.
And I get all of that. A very, very kind soul insisted on handing me a $20 bill this weekend and said, I like what you do. I really support it. I don't do any of that other stuff. And that was his way of showing his support.
That's great.
And nobody is complaining, and be very clear, we're not patronizing you for not using Patreon. Johnny's plug was just saying that it is truly a great resource and tool. So if you're comfortable using it, it is a great way to do it. But if you want to come up and
buy a lunch, hand us $20, have us sign a disc for you. We're always free and open. And all I'll say about that is that's awesome. It's when you run into the person that does that 2 months later, when you're doing a giveaway for anyone that supports you.
Was I eligible for that?
Did I? And you're like, I don't even have your email because you handed me $20.
Yeah.
And
that's where it can get a little dicey.
It gets a little awkward and dicey. And there's always, like I said, there's an awkward conversation of somebody supports you and you have this list. Now, do you send an email to these people saying,
"Hey, guys, a certain period of time.
Hey guys, you guys all supported me about a year ago. You want to send me more money?" Like it's so awkward. Yeah. Patreon, I always say value for value. We don't get paid unless we put out a podcast. Period. Like when we do a podcast, that's when every month it charges you for X amount that you agree to. Soapbox over. Let's do a giveaway.
And that's why we're going to 19 podcasts a week.
Yes. We're going to break it up. All right. So there were 197. We have 197 patrons.
The 197 people we like the most.
My favorite 197 people. And I can name them all one by one. Let's do a number. Let's do 2. 2 because Kim has 2 world titles.
All right.
So
as does Dave Felber. He, as someone said, he bookmarked the year. He started and ending the decade with world championships.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to go number 1 is 124. Our second is 95. So we're going to scroll down to Mr. 95, whoever that may be. It is Mike Geiske. Gieseke.
MC Geiske, who's always on the board.
Please that's MC Geiske.
I'm assuming. It'd be weird if it wasn't.
That's true.
Some other Geiske.
That's good. MC Geiske. So
Mike, are you out on the board? We'd love to see it. You almost always are. This would be funny if this is the one time you're not. I haven't seen you chime in tonight, so maybe that'll get you to log in. But
yeah, and Mr.
Reach
Geiske,
out,
who's been a Patreon supporter since about June of 2017.
So you're still in the hole. This is what we're trying to politely say. I'm just kidding. No, but thank you so much. We very, very much appreciate it. No, not Mike Y. I don't think that's going to be you. There he is.
There he is. Woot woot.
Woot woot, he says. Awesome.
It's funny because when I read the name, I didn't put it together with the username there.
That's what I'm here for, buddy. Johnny V will send you an email. Please reply to that email. Replies to all that comes back to me so that I see it, and then I create the shipping address probably next Tuesday, and then I get it shipped out to you. I think I'm behind on a couple people right now, and today was my day, and then it was spent, every moment of my time was spent today editing, so I apologize. I was going to get a little more caught up today, and it's not going to happen. But next week's the week, and then I'll tell you it's the week after. Just kidding. So yeah. One of the questions, and I don't even know if it's worth bringing up because we kind of beat it, but not. We talked about Worlds before.
Oh yeah,
Pro Masters Worlds. Could it be combined with Am Masters Worlds and have age-protected Worlds on Pro and Am side?
I would be cool with that.
Okay,
I think
done.
That would. That's another free one for you, PDGA. No,
end the conversation.
I think that I would be fine with that. Again, I'm not going to go into the whole thing. I just don't want to see anything combined with Pro Worlds anymore. I want Pro Worlds to be separate. So, the other thing I want to bring up real quickly about Worlds, as many of you know, we are covering Pro Worlds live. Did you know that? Yeah, we're covering Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So the final 3 days.
I think we should just cover like Thursday, Friday.
Just Thursday and Friday.
And then I'll go and watch. And
if you are interested in supporting us for Pro Worlds, reach out. We can let's have a conversation. As far as we can.
Do you mean like they're gonna watch? Does that count?
Supporting is watching as well. Mm-hmm. But if you happen to own a disc golf company of some sort and you want to be a Pro World supporter,
or you have an event in the fall that you'd like to have plugged,
or you're a club that would like some notoriety. Mm-hmm. Reach out. We can work something out for Worlds. We will make sure that we have something for you. or even individual. A couple years ago when we did Pro Worlds for 2016, we had a few individuals that just said, "Hey, I want to support you. Here's my name and and a logo, and we can put it up." And we did. And
we released virtual balloons, helium balloons, and they went up in the sky. They didn't litter, and they actually then, I think when they disintegrated, they left a few raindrops in the rainforest. In the rainforest,
it was recyclable glitter.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Cool One says, supporting you? You mean carrying a catch cam? I think we're good in terms of literal physical assets. In terms of people and manpower, I believe that we have that covered. However, Cool One, maybe there's other options for other events, but I think at the Worlds we should have most of those manpower concerns covered. Disc Golf Nerd asks, any word on USDGC Live?
Yes, we've talked about this.
Where were you, nerd?
We broke this news a couple weeks ago that we are not doing USDGC Live.
Yeah, where were you on that announcement?
But we are fairly certain, we've heard that Fulcrum Media, who does a lot of Ultimate, will be covering USDGC Live. They are probably going to be maybe some bigger cameras. I don't know, running maybe a bigger staff, running some fiber around that lake, hopefully, so they can. Obviously, we have no knowledge about any of the details. We've only heard kind of a little bit of talk on the outside as to what might be possible and what might be done. I have my own ideas as to far as if I were them, how I would think about attacking that particular project. But yes, Fulcrum Media, my guess is that USDGC, and nothing, I doubt anything is 100% finalized, but my guess is that you're going to see USDGC Live, and you're probably going to see an announcement after Worlds. If I were them, they're probably going to make a little splash, wait till Worlds is done, and all that hubbub is going on, and then when the next big event is USDGC, that is when you make your big announcement. And my guess is that that's what we're going to see, is them kind of come out and say, here's our plan, this is what we're going to do, this is the entity that's going to help us.
Couple quick things, and let me start with that. It was a few years ago we saw the announcement for the Disc Golf World Tour was unveiled at the USDGC, presenting it for the next year. I'll just ask now, if the World Tour is making a return for next year, and I'm just completely making this up out of thin air, would you see an announcement? Could you see an announcement being made again at the USDGC and saying, hey, here's the USDGC player meeting, blah, 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 and next year it is returning? Could you see that happening?
Yeah, I could. If UC is planning on, I'll say this, if UC is planning on doing something, whether it's the World Tour or maybe an offshoot of the World Tour, some other type of tour, USDGC announcement would make the most sense. Okay.
And I was just making that, but I was thinking about sitting at that player meeting, watching it, them pulling off the drape off the off the World Tour logo, and it was very cool and exciting, and so many questions. I think we interviewed UC literally a few hours later that very night, and it just was hitting me with this USDGC talk that maybe may or may not be an appropriate place. Now, Cool One asked, Terry, are you covering the women's tourney in Camden Park, Iowa this weekend? I would likely be there if I were not stuck at the MVP Open outside of Boston. That does sound like a good event, but I will not be at it.
The dude says, I kind of like the viewing party that JVD had last year. Depending on what happens. Now, I'll say this. That Saturday, I am scheduled to be at a wedding, as is Terry. And so I don't know if we're necessarily going to have a viewing party for the final day, which is the most fun day. Yeah, because it ends on Saturday, right?
Generally.
Yeah, generally ends on Saturday. So I doubt there'll be a viewing party this year just because I am stuck going to a good friend's wedding and up in Appleton area.
We'll see. Cool One says, have you heard anything, Terry, Johnny V? Northwood's whole expansion, this is your third time asking, for Worlds 2019, will Leggy MPO once again play Northwoods too? Did Nate Heinold mention it? I'll answer that. Yes, I know there's a whole expansion going on out there. I don't know any of the details relating to it. I'm sure they're just trying to make that course much harder. Will Ledgestone MPO once play it again next year? That I highly doubt it. If it's going to be on the Pro Tour, I would highly doubt it because we then don't have cell signal out at the Northwoods Park. So I would highly doubt they would play, but maybe they would. Who knows? I think Pro Tour is very adamant about trying to keep the amount of courses limited as opposed to adding more. And then did Nate mention it? He had not. I also did not ask him of it. So, but Ledgestone I've heard is happening next year in addition to Pro Worlds. And I'm guessing you're going to see Ledgestone in a 3-day format as opposed to 4 for next year. So, so a little give and take out there. But I again, complete guess, speculation. I doubt we'll see it. Yes, that's what we do. We just make stuff up. I doubt we'll see it in the mix for the Ledgestone on the MPO side, but I could be dead wrong. Boo this man.
All right. What other questions we got? Do we got anything?
I think it is implied cool one. They aren't playing 5 rounds or more on one course for Worlds. Yeah, again, I'm guessing it will in fact get used for Worlds. I just don't know if it'll get used or, so to speak, practice or test run at Ledgestone. One would think that it might, but who knows? Nate Heinold might host a really big B tier the day before, and that would be an opportunity, for people to play it. I'm not really sure. You're welcome, cool one. You're welcome for my pure speculation. As we said.
I'll say this. Our speculation is usually just a hair above most people's guesses. Not much.
I'm not going to say it's brilliant, but...
Not much, but just a little bit.
I mean, yeah. I'll go with that. Yeah, that was for no viewing party. Yeah. Who knows? I mean, this wedding... I don't know how secure they are.
That's what I was just about to say.
Anything could happen.
I had a conversation with the gentleman today about some fantasy football stuff that we were in the same league as. And I mean,
he's kind of a jerk.
I've known this guy for a long time. He's a great friend of ours.
He's still kind of a jerk.
But he's still kind of a jerk at times.
So he can very much screw this up.
You never know what's going to happen. It's not till October. Nothing's finalized. You and I could do a live viewing party at the wedding.
That's immediately where my mind was going. Like, why wouldn't we be doing that?
And I guess
who needs to watch a wedding?
And it depends. When is the wedding versus when is the reception?
Exactly.
Where neither of us are. Are you standing up?
Nope.
Me neither.
I don't think. No. All right. Who's your first pick? Big question on Skip Ace. Who's your steal? Who's your
steal on Skip Ace? Let me quick. I'll have to look at the MVP entrance, and I'll tell you who my
not
steal
that you guys don't need to or can't guess or see that already, but I made a very, very concerted effort this year to remember to be in Skip Ace, and I was on it, and I wasn't doing that great. That's besides the point, but I really did make an effort. And then you forget one, or you forget two, and then I lose my
interest after you lose
enthusiasm. And I'm no longer actively involved.
I'm going to say a steal is someone below 1020.
Do they have to be?
No. I mean,
I think you could, you could on a given day. Well, I'm not saying I'll say this: if Will Schustrick was in at 965, I don't care if it's 965 or 985 or whatever. I hear you. Okay. I understand that's below 1020. Yes, I do understand that as well, though.
Way to go. I think a couple people that might fall into the radar, maybe. Patrick Brown, who's at 1011.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, especially considering he plays Masters most of the time, a lot of people are going to
hiding under the radar,
overlook him. Dutch Napier has always played pretty solid there.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Oman at 107, I think could be a steal. He plays particularly well at sometimes at these events. He's a good player. And
it sounds like a solid sell for him.
I know.
He plays particularly well at some of these events.
Hey, you could put that on a disc, Paul. Tall Paul, who I could look at his history actually. Anyway, Paul Oman I think is a pretty good steal. Obviously, Will Schustrick at 1004. Reed Frescura hiding down there at 1004. We've seen that he performs very well. He's a lefty. He's got a crusher of an arm. I don't know how well he particularly performs at wooded courses, but he's from Michigan, so He's probably used to those style of courses. And I'll give one more here. Maybe an Evan Gerthy, who is not on the scene very often. Double G's big brother in age. I don't know about size anymore. I don't know how tall Evan is versus Garrett these days. But Evan might be, he's not going to win you the event. But if Evan took top 30, like 30th or something, not a surprise at all. And that's kind of what you're looking for one of those lower picks. Alan Risley says Barry. I'd love to, but Barry's like the 7th highest rated player here or something.
Yeah,
1, 2, 3,
so
4,
it's
5,
hard
6,
for him to,
7,
so to speak,
8, 9.
fly under the radar.
Yeah, it's hard for him to fly under. It's like picking, he's rated just 2 points under Kale and tied with James Conrad. So that whole top 10, it's really hard. I mean, if you want some good players, you pick MJ, who went into a playoff 2 years ago with Bradley Williams.
And a squirrel.
Chipmunk. Whatever it was. So those are some players that if you want to save a couple ratings points, you might want to look at.
Okay.
And someone asks, JVD, any update on the 2 lowest scores dropped stats? I think a month ago I promised it was going to be done in a week.
How's that going?
Not well. I keep going back and forth with my web guy. The funny thing is he'll put the update out there, test it, find a flaw in it, and pull it out. And then he'll do it, a day or so later, put it in, run the scores, find a flaw. And we've done this 4 times now. And so we're just having an issue with dropping the 2 lowest scores is a difficult matter because you have to drop scores that people don't pick from as well. If you were just dropping the 2 lowest regardless, that's fine. But the way the database works is if you don't make picks, those numbers aren't in there. So if you don't pick on week 8, you've got no results for week 8. So finding a way to do that, that's the weird issue we're running into with the bug. So I trust me, every week I follow up and I say, hey, how's it going? And he's like, I think I got it. Let me try it tonight and I'll let you know. And he tells me back the next day, it looked good except for ... So I promise you, I'm still continually working on it. And I told him, I said, we're getting towards the end of the season and people really want to know, dude. So let's work on this. So anyway, that's kind of where I stand right now with that.
I mean,
but yes, there will be a separate column.
If that's your roundabout way of asking me to take a look at the code.
How good are you with databases, Terry?
I mean,
maybe I should ask Steve Dodge. He reached out to a database developer and said, hey, I need some help. And so that's where it is. It's just we're running. I would think it's like 90 to 95% done. It's literally getting rid of some glitches. And again, I don't pay my web guy very much, so I kind of keep getting bumped down on the priority list. And he's like, I got this big project, and I'm like, yeah, I know, but
I've got non-paying disc golfers,
but I'm not paying you, and no one's paying me, and I'd really like this done. So I promise you tomorrow I will follow up with him again, as I do pretty much every Wednesday.
Team Howell 123 says, thanks Terry for helping with the stats. Yeah, you're welcome.
You are a regular Dixon Jowers.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know that I have a heck of a lot more. I feel like I don't know if it was last week or the week before where I didn't feel like we had a lot of content, and then I get in the car and I drive home and I'm like, oh yeah, there was like literally like 4 other legitimate topics, to talk about, but I did not have them somehow handy for me. Did I talk about Pro Masters Worlds? I'm just kidding. It was good. A, I hope Schwebe has a speedy recovery, and B, seeing these competitors and then thinking about, we'll say a Felberg at 41, I want to say, 41, maybe 42. And then knowing a Barry is on the other end of that spectrum, but seeing these guys battle it out this last weekend was something that was interesting. And I know somebody posted earlier about the 5-year divisional breakdowns and what that really means. And I know there's all sorts of statistics and research out there about the various age groups. And that can be said on the junior side. How different is a 6-year-old from the 8-year-old, from the 11-year-old in terms of their growth and development. And the battle this weekend, like you said, I think about a Patrick Brown, who I'm guessing is 49. I don't think he's quite 50.
Correct. I believe
I
this
think
is
he's
his first
49, and he's
eligible
turning
year.
50 this year, of course. Just so much talent. It was incredible to see the most legendary, winningest players in our game and watch how they perform. I was absolutely entertained every single round that I filmed them. And it's maybe no shocker. You just said, here at the MVP Open, Barry comes in as the 7th highest rated player. He's won that event way back. And to watch how smooth he is and still putt and perform. Here was the interesting takeaway. I knew if I dug around, I'd find my point. One of the interesting takeaways I had this weekend on that lead card, and we'll even go to the top 5. So, Dave Felberg, Johnny McRae, Barry Schultz, Brian Schweberger, Mike Mosier. Name, aside from the nearly 1,000 combined wins they have, name a very glaring similarity among all of them in terms of their disc golf game. And absolutely...
They're all men.
Thank you. Wow.
I'll
give you a hint.
They're all righties.
They're all righties. I'll give you a hint. I mean, obviously, they're in the Masters division, which doesn't mean they have to be, but they're also all, we'll say, older school disc golfers. Dave, maybe not quite as much as all those others. Well, Dave and I guess Schwebe are a little newer compared to the other 3, but among the 5, old school, we'll say even I'll go as far as saying almost an old school mentality.
Yeah, hardly any of them throw sidearms.
Bingo. And you have the only.
I mean,
Johnny is now. I've seen Johnny throw a couple of really phenomenal sidearms. I really have in the last
Felberg
year.
Throws them when he needs to. Not often. When he needs
and
to.
I know the
But
course.
They all do.
This will speak to the course because I watched them play entire rounds. Waterworks on Friday Waterworks on Friday, Waterworks on Saturday morning, and Waterworks Saturday afternoon. So I know that's just one course, and that's a very small sample size. Do you know how many forehands I saw? Wait. Count. Okay.
2.
Off the tee.
Yeah, off the tee, I'm guessing 2.
The answer is 0.
Okay. And and again, I don't know the course.
No, I know.
Recall the course extremely well, but
and that may very much speak to the course. Don't get me wrong. But
how many
0,
overhands did you see?
I think 6, and that's where I would almost qualify. There's a particular shot, hole number 4 at Waterworks. For those that are familiar, that's the one with the peace sign on the side of the hill. It's a straight tunnel shot, 285 with a slight bend to the right. If you've got a gentle turnover or a straight shot that just kind of fades straight or fades slightly right, that's the preferred shot. Or if you're Schwebe, you throw an overhand so that as soon as it gets down near the pin, it kind of squibbles and it squibbles up and to the right. So could you call it? Obviously, it's kind of got that effect of a forehand. 0 forehand shots thrown among them.
Darren LeMay, Dad's drunk, I believe, says, how many old school guys throw sidearm? Johnny, Climo, Schultz, Schwebe, Michael Joe Stokely.
And there's my point. Well,
Stokely throws a huge sidearm. He had the sidearm record, or might still.
Yeah, no, he did for the longest time. Yeah.
So he's out of that. He's
question,
a unique case. But you're right. Most of them do not throw a sidearm particularly confidently. They all have it if they need it. Like you won't watch any of them go, oh crap, I need to throw a 250-foot sidearm. All of them can do it. But they would prefer to throw a backhand turnover. Who do you think doesn't have a sidearm? A 250-foot consistent sidearm, something that you maybe need to
I've never seen Schultz throw one. I've seen Schultz throw 100-foot little, pitch out shot with a putter.
Yeah,
I
don't
never
count that.
Seen Schultz playing with him I used to play with him for many years. I've never seen Schultz throw a forehand sharp edge disc. And now, granted, I haven't watched him intently for the last 10 years since he's moved away. I have never seen him throw a sharp edged forehand disc. I don't know if I've seen Felberg throw a sharp-edged forehand disc.
I want to say we have seen Felberg even on the broadcast do it, because we were all shocked
maybe once
when he did it.
Yeah,
But he doesn't do it frequently. But you're
anyway, Schwebby.
Yeah.
I've never.
So here's the question: when one of our and these guys will probably all be then in their Masters 50 plus, when we start to see these guys who do have both shots, are they just going to walk in and dominate? Like,
no, because all these other guys will be in the next division.
I know that's what I'm saying, but when these guys, and we are not seeing. It really feels like there's a gap. It almost feels like you don't have a ton of really high quality players from 30 to 40 right now. Like, you've got your Brinster, who's still up there.
Ouch.
That's why I qualified. You've got Brinster, you've got Michael Joe.
Yep.
From 30 to 40.
Old's Kale.
Kale might be 31, 32.
I think he's at least that. But okay.
I'm just saying, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of them. So I think it's almost like for the next 10 years, the Masters field is going to kind of be a drought of new players. You're going to see, like I said, maybe Michael Joe will jump in. I think he's got a year, maybe 2 left. Sexton is 32. Thank you. Coling is 32. Okay, so we'll see.
So yeah, Kale's got to be at least an old man.
Doss is 32 as well, right? He's the same age as Sexton, right?
Yep.
Yeah, but I mean, all right. So we'll maybe say for the next 5 to 7 years, we're going to see a drought of our top quality players going into Masters. We're going to see these guys that we have now almost kind of walk into having these Masters chances for a while, because once in 10 years, when we start to see all of our top players that are playing now go in there, it's going to be a flood. Because
maybe
we're gonna see your Colings and probably your Sextons, because those are guys that, if they can, they might double dip, but we'll maybe look at the courses at time and say, I'm not competitive with your kid that's 24 right now or 23. I'd rather play Masters. A big funny thing is, of all the years and locations, not having Avery at this Worlds, I thought was a little, and I know Avery kind of has he's still, I think, in the mentality of, I can play Open, I'm not going to play Masters. Mm-hmm. But seeing as how he won in Kansas City, I would have liked to see him go there, and maybe that was part of it. Maybe he doesn't want to sully Kansas
or taint. Yeah.
So I'll use the word sully. He doesn't want to sully his Kansas City Worlds experiences in his head, and that could be a personal thing, and I can't blame him for that. But it would have been nice to see him there, seeing as how he's qualified just like EMAC.
Yeah, that is interesting to note. I hadn't thought about him specifically, and seeing EMAC go there. I think EMAC finished in 7th or so. I mean, a very competitive field, and EMAC simply not playing as nearly as much golf, I think, as probably maybe people think he is. He
plays a lot of casual golf.
Yeah, and he's not out there necessarily in that competitive spirit nearly as often as a Schultz, who's playing pretty much every single weekend. It will be interesting to see who ultimately, and Avery's maybe your closest example as someone who's now moving into that MP40 field that is confidently throwing from both sides, as opposed to some of that slightly older mentality where just forehands weren't a thing. And I'll say I'm from that generation of forehands just weren't a primary shot, and they were barely a secondary shot. And it took regional.
You're more likely to see Barry throw a funny squib roller.
Oh, absolutely.
Than you are a forehand shot, unless unless there's absolutely shot calls for it. Like it is a no-brainer. That is what you do.
Yeah, I don't. It wasn't a primary shot in our area, and that lended to our courses. I think it would have been different if you and I grew up in some other part of the country that required more forehand shots. I think they would have.
I don't think it would.
More critical.
Look at those players who are all over the country.
Yeah,
Like,
that's possible.
It wasn't a necessity back in the day.
And it certainly wasn't something that was not a necessity, but it wasn't emphasized.
Correct.
Is maybe even a better way
Whereas
to put it.
now, you need to have a strong forehand and backhand to compete. You need to. If you don't have it, you are missing out.
Yeah,
And you will lose strokes to the field.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think. And then you also, of course, one would say, well, none of these guys have forehands. How can they still be competitive or whatever? They also could all be deemed as some of your best turnover shot throwers on the planet as well. And you throw Ken Climo right into that mix,
as Chuck
too.
said, mid-range in general. Like those are guys who can work a mid-range disc like none other.
Yeah.
You don't see. When was the last time you saw a Ricky Wysocki throw a nice turnover touch mid-range? He would sooner throw a forehand,
Of course.
and because that's his strength.
It's a lower chance of screwing it up, and it's just flat out easier for him to do that. So anyway, interesting observation I made the other day. I almost thought I was smart for a second. I was like, wow, none of these guys throw forehands, and 0 were, again, that definitely plays to the course in which they were on.
Slightly more open from the tee pad.
None of them threw a forehand at any point during the rounds I had filmed them. Now, over at the other course, I'll admit that they may have thrown some where it was required. I still don't think so, though. Interesting to see. And more interesting, I think I said it during one of our last broadcasts where we had Johnny McRae on. I think it's pretty awesome. You want to talk about the old, cliche, teach an old dog new tricks. Like, Johnny McRae isn't afraid to throw a forehand drive if it's not required.
Mm-hmm.
Dave Feldberg is. He won't do it. I don't think, just like how I feel, I'm at a point in my career where it's not that important to me. Johnny McRae, who wants to continue to play and play at the highest level, it's important to him still. For me to go out in field and practice for hours upon hours to somehow dial it in, I'm way past caring in my playing career, so I'm not going to do it. I think Dave Feldberg, Barry Schultz, Brian Schweberger probably all kind of feel the same. It's not important enough for them to go out and try and learn that right now. But interesting to see.
Chuck says one of Harold Duvall's missions at USTGC design early was to make holes where throwing forehand was overwhelmingly the best shot. How's that worked out?
Yeah.
There's I'm not ripping Harold. I'm just saying that course, almost nowhere do you see someone that really truly benefits from a forehand off the tee. Maybe the 888 hole now, based on where all of the OB is and stuff, they'll throw a forehand out to a position. And maybe on the one where you start up at the top of the Coliseum where you throw it down, there's some people that throw forehands there. But you wouldn't say that's overwhelmingly the best choice. You could say that might be percentage-wise a slightly higher or lower risk shot. But I don't see USDGC to me isn't a course where I say, yeah, like that's a forehand-friendly course. That's a course where forehands are have an advantage.
So Chuck is specifically stating hole 11 second throw. Sure, that has an advantage in that case to throw because you're coming into that sloped green on the hillside. If you're equally versed in backhand versus forehand, does it make more sense to throw a forehand there?
Yeah,
sure. But I think you could also find 10 other places where you'd say, well, all things considered equal, yeah, a backhand righty shot would be a preferred shot in a different situation. I mean, look at the tee on the previous hole on hole number 11, on hole number 10. Like, if you're going for the green, clearly the forehand shot or the backhand shot is the much better route. So I feel like if that was truly an intent, that's a noble intent. I don't see it playing out that way at all.
I'll go with Darren here, and when he says that Eagle has one of the most diverse shot selections in golf,
sure.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there isn't an angle or shot that I don't feel confident that he can pull off. I think that he
sure.
Like you said, grenades, rollers, everything. He has it all, and
he absolutely does.
I agree with that.
Darren, is there a commission on, or is there just a cut you get for being the Eagle fan club president? I don't know.
There's two things Darren's very good at: promoting Eagle. And he comes up with some of the best statistics.
He absolutely does. And I'm just picking on you, Darren. I love it. And I only love it in the fanboyism realm that everybody has their favorites. And I think what you bring to the table every week is you have the analysis and the breakdown to say, Eagle's the best at this, and here's why. So I'm just gently poking
Someone
you,
accused me online of not liking Simon.
Really?
Yeah, they were like, I was talking about podcasts, just like I mentioned before. I said, oh, hey, here's the type of podcast. If you really love statistics and breakdown, Dixon's got a great one. If you FPO, Ladies of the Chains, we're more of a long form jabber, and a bunch of things. And I think it was on Reddit. And someone says, yeah, that's really great. I like that you do that. But I really get the feeling that, you just, or something like, yeah, it's just too bad that you don't really like Simon. And I was like, what? I was like, Simon is one of my most favorite guests. And he's like, really? Because he's like, maybe it was just one time I watched, but I didn't get that feeling at all. I was like, huh, I wonder. And that made me think, I wonder what other people that maybe just briefly catch the podcast or don't listen to the whole thing think about our opinions towards certain players. And it just kind of made me chuckle. Like, Simon is one of the most fun guests because you never know what he's going to say. When you get a Sexton on here, very knowledgeable, but he's really probably not going to surprise you with something shocking. He's very smart. He chooses his words very wisely. He knows what to say. Simon might just come out and say, yeah, I once punched Eagle in the head. And you'd be like, what? and Simon will tell you this crazy story. Whereas if you're not going to get that from a lot of other players.
Sure.
And that's why I love Simon, because he's so open and such a great guest. So I want to put it out there for that person who said that, if you're even listening.
You have a Simon man crush.
Well, anyone that can throw that far.
Oh, wow. Okay. Fair enough.
Just saying.
I think I love all our guests, so.
I don't. I'm just kidding. But you have to pick the one I don't like.
All right. What else is on the board? Well, I'm not sure what that was being talked about here, but you did say that he was not an athlete. I'm not sure who Luke was referencing at that point. I wonder how many times Tom Brady, there's a conversation about Tom Brady being drug tested. It's late, so Patrick Brown ought to be calling in any minute. Calling. Okay, that was just a spelling error. Okay. Calling in any minute. Yeah, I reached out to Patrick Brown. He said he'd be getting in at roughly midnight Eastern. And I said, if you're up for it and if you have a connection, you're absolutely welcome. We'll still be up. And I have not heard any kind of reach out from him. So he could have been delayed or whatever.
I will be curious.
The open invite was there.
I will be curious to see how, and I think we said this a week or two ago, see how Eagle finishes out the season with the more, with the tighter courses, the next 2 or 3 that he plays. Considering he has played mostly open courses up until now, has skipped out on Idlewild, and they are a different style of course. MVP and Worlds are a different style of course than what we have seen Eagle perform on. He did very well at Beaver State, which is a wooded course. It's not necessarily tightly wooded like some of these shots, but it is heavily wooded. So I'm very interested to see how Eagle competes here, because right now it seems like if you were taking Vegas odds, he's the favorite to win Worlds based on how he's performed at the other NTs and majors.
Okay. Earlier you said player of the year was tied with Wysocki and Eagle?
Yes, Eagle and Wysocki, I think at 197 points.
And then off by a handful of
like
points.
13 or 14 or something.
Okay, that is interesting. All right, Eagle could be Avery if he ate dead animals. I'm not sure that's the case. And Darren says, I'd still bet Ricky due to the course history, but it's close. And Ricky keeps winning at over there at that course.
And you want to take course into account, I could see giving Ricky a slight advantage over Eagle, but I'm basing this more on how they've competed this year. They all know the course very well. I kind of push that down on the advantage scale. Yes, Ricky has performed well here in the past, but all these players know these courses very, very, very well. So I'm going to weigh that a little lower than what I would see versus recent history of performing.
Okay.
But I wouldn't argue if you told me one was...
You're putting $1,000 on Eagle.
Yes.
James Conrad will be good at Maple Hill. He's good in that setting. Yeah. Well, I've said that about... We've also said that about MJ.
Oh.
And MJ's let us down a few times.
Yep.
If you're picking him.
2 years ago, he was going for the win with Bradley, and now and last year, I don't think he was top 10.
Yeah. Oh well, and I'll go ahead and just say I've picked MJ at a number of very tight wooded courses this year, and as everyone would say, that's where he excels. And I'm not saying he's not good. I'm just saying he hasn't performed as you would have expected him to at a few of those courses this year. So. All we can do is, randomly throw out words, and speculate.
I'm looking. Last year's DGP Vibram Open, he was 17th.
7.
So I think there is, what's a tender way to put this? There's I won't say a misconception. MJ's good in the woods.
Okay.
But I don't think he's heads and shoulders above other guys in the woods, particularly.
Okay.
I think MJ.
Well, I think he's proven that this year that he. It's not like he's unbeatable. He seems to be maybe more comfortable and generally plays well there.
Yeah.
But he's proven he's also not dominating heads and shoulders above everyone else. And I know that because I've picked him on a number of instances.
and maybe that's his putting. I don't know. Like maybe he's getting through the woods and not and just not the putts aren't falling. I don't know, but if it's a heavily wooded course, yeah, he might be on my list, but I don't.
You're not betting the house on
I'm
him
not betting
to
the
win.
house on MJ.
Okay.
I would put James Conrad over MJ right now.
Ooh wee. I can't wait till you get them both on the podcast and tell it to their faces.
Okay. You get them both on the podcast, and I will tell them.
Oh, hey, Darren, that's a funny comment. You bring up Drew Gibson as your dark horse. There was a dark horse post this week. No, I won't even go there. All right, you follow Drew Gibson on Twitter. You follow him. You can read up on your own. I'm going to leave it at that. That's where I'll leave that. I think we're going to leave it all is what we're going to do. Happy ratings day to everyone. Go out, sign up, become a PDGA member if you're not already. Support the PDGA. MJ's in his 30s.
38, I believe.
38 sounds about right. Yeah, I think that sounds about right. I think that was just a discussion the other day, actually. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. All of you Smashies out there, Facebook land, YouTube land, or if you're listening to us in post-production with one of your favorite podcast apps, please go out. I know it sounds kind of silly, but if you go out and give us like 6 stars or 8 stars on your podcast app, that actually helps with visibility. It helps with people being able to find us. It's great to feel good about what our nifty rating is, but it actually has a little bit more of a marketing value to it as well, with discovery and people finding disc golf podcasts out there in the world. So we always appreciate if you could go out and do that for us. Make sure you're subscribed, hit the little bell, all that fun stuff, and make sure you follow along, tune in. We'll see if we can get some more stuff out on Facebook and social media to let you know what we have going on. But of course, we'll be live with the Disc Golf Pro Tour during this weekend. We're looking forward to it at the MVP Open. For Johnny V and Terry Miller,
That's me,
the Disc Golf Guy, we appreciate each and every one of you, especially our Patreon supporters. We love you more.
197 of you.
All 197 of you. And we look forward to seeing you this weekend at the MVP Open and next week for our weekly podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time when you step inside the Smash Box.